subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Chapter 101. Conquering Zapdos, is that so? Sabrina looked at the Ultra Ball in Gary's hand. If it's just for the convenience of taking it to the Pokémon Center for treatment, why use the Ultra Ball? Isn't this advanced Pokeball used to capture more precious Pokémon? Although Sabrina has little experience, she is not stupid, and she does not expose Gary's little thoughts. Then why did you release Zapdos now? Sabrina asked. Look at the weather. This is caused by Zapdos. Even if Zapdos is in a coma now, the dark clouds are still there. It may take some time for the dark clouds to dissipate naturally. Give Zapdos treatment in advance, and after the dark clouds are completely dispersed, go to the Pokémon Center. Gary explained. Well, do you need me to get the two people in the cockpit out? Sabrina asked. Aren't you tired? Gary asked. 973. Not tired. Why are you asking me this? Sabrina asked, puzzled. I heard from Mr. Najuan that excessive use of psychic can cause headaches. Teleport is also a very mentally exhausting psychic. If you use it so frequently, I'm worried that you will get headaches. Gary said. Sabrina was silent for a while. Feeling Gary's concern, Sabrina still felt warm in her heart. She shook her head and said, I'm not tired. Don't forget that my father once said that I was a monster. You are so beautiful. You have nothing to do with monsters. Gary teased. Sabrina's face was slightly red. Without saying anything, she walked to the robot and used confusion to open the emergency escape switch inside the robot. Ma Yuan and Lang Yin, who were still planning to fight to the death, were like chickens in front of Sabrina. They were easily controlled and hypnotized to sleep. Gary also took out Super Potion and sprayed it on Zapdos' body. Super Potion is a very good medicine. It can be used externally to treat external injuries and internally to restore physical strength. It is indeed one of the must-haves for outdoor travel. While spraying Super Potion on Zapdos, Gary used all 10 high-level rare candy in the space backpack and taught Zapdos Thunderbolt and Signal Beam. Zapdos is worthy of its name as a legendary Pokémon. After being treated with Super Potion, it woke up in a short while. After waking up, Zapdos saw Gary and immediately felt that the lifesaver in front of him was much more pleasing to the eye. Zapdos, you're awake, Gary said. Zapdos stood up and shook his head, feeling some of his physical condition still a little weak. Zapdos, disperse the thunderstorm and restore the magnetic field. Otherwise, the signal here will not be able to communicate. Gary said, Woo! Zapdos nodded, flapped dual wing beat, and plunged directly into the dark clouds in the sky. After a while, the dark clouds covering dozens of miles all dispersed. After the weather was restored, the surrounding magnetic field quickly returned to stability. A white light flashed from Gary's waist, and the two Pokeballs disappeared and were directly teleported away by the Pokémon Pokédex. Gary was also shocked. He forgot that the space for Pokémon on his body was full. At that time, it was full when he captured Electabuzz, but because of an emergency, the Pokeball was not teleported away. Now everything has returned to normal. The Pokémon Pokédex detected that Gary had 8 Pokeballs on him and used them. 2 of them were teleported away directly. In order, the Pokeball with Electabuzz and the Pokeball of Zapdos will be teleported. This Pokémon Pokédex's transmission system will not teleport Pokémon, but only Pokeballs. If the Pokémon is outside, only the Pokeball will be teleported away, and the Pokémon will still be outside. This also leads to a problem. That is, Gary now has no Pokeball to put Zapdos in. If he wants to use other Pokeballs, he needs to destroy the Pokeball that previously contained Zapdos. Or if Zapdos is left outside for more than 3 days, the protection of the Pokeball will be lifted. At that time, Zapdos is in the contest condition and can be put in with a new Pokeball. Xiao will bring people over later. Gary doesn't want to make a big deal, but there's no Pokeball in front of him, so Zapdos can't be taken back. Dutus, after the thunderstorm was lifted, Zapdos also flew back from the sky and landed beside Gary. He also rubbed Gary's arm with his sharp beak. The meaning is self-evident. Gary, Zapdos said he wants to follow you and thank you for saving his life. Sabrina translated, "Is that so? So you want to be my Pokémon?" Gary said, "Although I knew Zapdos might do this, I felt a different feeling when I heard Zapdos admit it himself." Ostos. Zapdos nodded. "Then I'll be grateful for your guidance in the future. However, the Pokeball I captured just now has been teleported away, so I'll have to trouble you to stay outside for the time being." Gary said. Zapdos didn't know that it had been captured by Gary when it fainted, but it didn't object to Gary asking it to wait. After the signal returned to normal, Gary also brought people to Miss Junsha, and the rocket team was handed over to Miss Junsha. Junsha and others were all surprised to see Zapdos, but they were all policemen and people who had seen the world. Regarding Gary's capture of Zapdos, they decided that Gary was lucky and actually got the recognition of legendary Pokemon. As long as legendary Pokemon is not used for sale or illegal research, Pokemon Alliance will not pursue any responsibility. Not to mention that this Zapdos voluntarily followed Gary, so there is nothing to pursue. In order not to shock the people of Kangland City, Gary did not go into the city with Zapdos, but asked Sabrina to contact Professor Oak in the city to take back the Pokeball and send back the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Sabrina was very efficient. She returned to the city with the teleport and got it from Professor Oak. Ultra Ball, and teleported to Gary's side. "Take it." Sabrina handed the Ultra Ball to Gary. "Zapdos, come in and rest. I will make you fully healed in 2.4 later." Gary said, although the Assist Super Potion has been restored, Zapdos has not recovered completely. Only after comprehensive treatment with the treatment equipment can it be fully recovered. After putting Zapdos back into the Pokeball, Gary suddenly looked at Sabrina and asked, "Sabrina, how did you teleport to my side all of a sudden?" Gary didn't care before, but Sabrina teleported to him 3 times in a row, which was too strange. Will Sabrina be able to find him immediately wherever he is in the future? "I left a mental mark on you. As long as the mark doesn't disappear, I can teleport to your side," Sabrina explained. Gary was stunned. He didn't expect Sabrina to secretly leave a mental mark on him. This feels like the Flying Thunder God technique. How far can it be? Chapter 102. The director's thank you gift. No, I can sense a large area like Saffron City, but if I have enough spiritual power, I can find you anywhere in the Kanto region. Sabrina said, Gay 242. If I marry Sabrina in the future, she can use Solation to check on me. Fortunately, I am not a philandering man, otherwise who can stand Sabrina? Sabrina, let's go back. I'll treat you to a big dinner tonight. Gary held Sabrina and walked towards the city. Why walk? I could just teleport, said. I just want to stay with you for a while. Gary pinched Sabrina's hand. Sabrina blushed and let Gary lead her. Half an hour later, Gary, Sabrina, let's go back by teleport. Let's walk back. I think the restaurant will be closed. Sabrina? The next day, thanks to the repair work of the power plant staff, the power was restored in the early hours of last night, and the Blue City returned to its former tranquility. Gary continued to practice flying at the driving school. Originally, Gary wanted Zapdos to learn flying, but he thought that there were too many people at Driving School 02, and it would not be good to attract attention. Gary planned to let his Pokémon teach Zapdos when he returned to Pallet Town. Pokémon can teach each other skills. Everyone can fly, and the skills and difficulty of flying are the same. I believe that with Zapdos' talent, it should not be difficult to master this move. Gary watched Pidgeot, Aerodactyl, and Crobat practice flying and looked at the time. After practicing for another half an hour, they could leave. However, at this time, Miss Junsha came here, followed by a middle-aged man with a Mediterranean hairstyle and a suit. Gary also noticed them and kept watching them coming. Mr. Gary, this is the director of the power plant, Mr. Nara. He came to thank you for your help yesterday. Miss Junsha took the initiative to introduce. Mr. Gary, it's our first meeting. Thank you very much for your help yesterday. If it weren't for you, the loss of our power plant would be far more than this. I must thank you very much. Nara stepped forward to thank him and shook hands with Gary enthusiastically. Mr. Nara is too polite. Thank you. Gary also said politely. Although Nara is the director of the power plant and his status is not normal, he is still far behind Professor Oak. Gary is likely to look down on what he can thank for, so it is better to politely refuse. Mr. Nara, Please wait a moment. I have a few questions from Mr. Gary, Junsha interrupted. Oh, please. Nara stepped aside very tactfully. Gary was also a little confused and didn't know what questions Junsha wanted to ask him. Could be a problem related to Zapdos? Mr. Gary, please don't misunderstand me. I just need to record the details of the incident so that I can report it to my superiors. Junsha gave Gary a shot of precaution first, so that Gary would not misunderstand him. Well, let Miss Xia ask. Okay, then I'll ask. Junsha said, Mr. Gary, why did you go to the power plant yesterday? Because I lacked Electro Pokemon, I wanted to capture a Magnemite. So I went to the power plant to take a look, but a thunderstorm suddenly appeared. Later, I found that my mobile phone and Pokédex could not be used. I told you about the rest yesterday, Miss Junsha, so I don't need to tell you again. Gary said, No, just know the reason why Mr. Gary went there. Then I won't bother you too. Junsha left directly after recording, leaving Nara alone here. Gary was also speechless. You brought the person here, so you should at least take him back. Nara is the director of a power plant, so why are you so negligent? Mr. Gary, you just said that you went to the power plant to capture Magnemite. Did you capture the Magnemite you like? Nara asked. No, but I met a good Electabuzz. Gary said. Regarding Zapdos, Gary asked Junsha to keep it secret, and the staff were detained in the warehouse by Team Rocket did not know Team Rocket's plan to capture Zapdos. The staff of the power plant, including the director, did not know that Gary had captured Zapdos. Does Mr. Gary still want Magnemite? Nara asked. Yes, Gary said without any hesitation. Judging from Nara's posture, he was going to give him Magnemite. If he really gave him Magnemite, Gary would not mind accepting it. After all, he really needed to breed a Magneton. If the Magnemite Nara gave him had good potential, he could really accept Nara's thanks. If Mr. Gary doesn't mind, I can give you a Magnemite with good potential. Nara said, Mr. Nara, if it's a potential that can be detected, then don't mention it. I have very high requirements for breeder Pokemon. Gary said. Gary was very worried that Nara would give him a Magnemite with gym potential, which was not a good idea. I understand. I bought this Pokemon at an auction. Its potential is definitely above the gym, and it is very precious. As he said that, Nara took out a red Pokeball from his pocket. Precious ball. Gary saw that the Pokeball that Nara took out was a precious ball. There is no difference between precious balls and ordinary Pokeballs in terms of capture effect. The only difference is that the material used for precious balls is more precious, which is a symbol of the status of the rich. 227, it can be confirmed that Nara's Magnemite must have been purchased from an auction, and it was a very high-end auction. Only such an auction would use precious balls to capture Pokeballs, which would appear very impressive. Seeing the precious ball, Gary was immediately excited. Magnemite, come out. Nara opened the precious ball. Great! A silver-gray Magnemite appeared. Other colored Magnemite. Gary was shocked. He didn't expect Nara to give him an odd-color Magnemite. No wonder it was put in a precious ball. This is a last resort product. LV20 Magnemite / Elite. Especially since this odd-color Magnemite has elite potential, its value is not just as simple as an odd-colored Pokemon. Mr. Gary, are you satisfied? Nara asked. Mr. Nara, are you really going to give me this odd-colored Magnemite? Gary asked. Of course, if it weren't for you, our power plant would have a major accident this time. Although this Magnemite is an odd-colored one, there are a lot of Magnemites, so it's not that precious. Nara said. In that case, thank you, Mr. Nara, for your present. Gary thanked him. Nara said to Magnemite, Magnemite, I found a great trainer for you. You will definitely like it. Magnemite? ? Chapter 103. Magnemite was confused. How could he be given away suddenly? Was he still a Pokemon that was bought at high price? Magnemite, please give me your advice. I will take good care of you in the future. Gary also greeted Magnemite. Why? Magnemite looked at Gary, and the magnets on both sides kept shaking as if saying something. Gary was confused. He had never met Magnemite before and didn't know what the other party wanted to express. Mr. Gary, Magnemite is asking how many badges you have. Nara reminded. Badge? Gary was stunned. This Magnemite actually knows about badges. Just based on the level of this Magnemite, any Pokemon in the gym can beat it. Mr. Gary, Don't be surprised. This Magnemite is actually aggressive by nature, but because it is a heterochromatic and too precious, its previous breeder did not allow it to fight. Nara explained, after I took a picture of it, it has always wanted to fight. It learned a lot about trainers from me. It wants to participate in the Alliance Conference and knows that only trainers with 8 badges are eligible to participate. Quai. Magnemite nodded. Only trainers with 8 badges can get its approval. Gary did not expect that this Magnemite also likes to fight. Then the training in the future will be worry-free and less psychological counseling can be done. Then I should be able to get your approval. Gary took out the badge box from his bag and opened it. There were 8 badges inside. Quai. Seeing the 8 badges in the box, Magnemite was immediately excited. It can finally participate in the Alliance Conference. Instantly, Magnemite stuck to Gary, rubbing his Orbird body against Gary's arm, almost rubbing static electricity. Mr. Gary is worthy of being a trainer who could drive away Team Rocket. He has 8 badges at such a young age. He has the potential to become a Pokémon master in the future, Nara exclaimed. Nara was also a trainer when he was young, but he only collected 4 badges and gave up the dream of being a trainer. Now seeing the vigorous Gary, Nara misses his younger self a little. Nara hopes that Magnemite can help Gary get a good ranking in the Alliance Conference, which is almost equivalent to him participating in the Alliance Conference himself. It seems that Magnemite likes you very much. Then I feel relieved, Nara said. Mr. Nara, thank you. I will take good care of Magnemite. Gary said. Gary felt that his luck had turned for the better recently. High potential Pokémon were sent one after another. Yesterday, he captured 2 Pokémon with champion potential, and today, he captured another Magnemite with elite potential. The key is that Magnemite can also use the best Thunderstone to increase its potential, which is equivalent to a Pokémon with champion potential. He captured 3 Pokémon with champion potential in one day. At this moment, Gary just wanted to ask, who else? Because Gary's Pokémon slots were full, if he wanted to join the team, he could first teleport a Pokémon to Professor Oak. So, Gary and Nara came to the teleporter of the driving school. Oh, Gary, what's up? The call was connected, and Professor Oak's picture appeared on the screen. What? Professor Oak. Before Gary could speak, Nara, who was standing behind Gary, was stunned. He never thought that Gary would recognize Professor Oak. Hello, may I ask who you are? Professor Oak didn't know Nara, but seeing that Nara was with Gary, he should be someone they met temporarily. Hello, Professor Oak. I'm Nara, the director of the Blue City Power Plant. Nara introduced himself respectfully. Professor Oak was stunned. He didn't understand why Gary knew the growth of the power plant. The two were not related at all. It's like this, Mr. Gary. Seeing Professor Oak's confusion, Nara told Professor Oak about Gary saving the power plant yesterday. So that's how it is. Gary, you were really something. After such a thing happened, you didn't tell me whether you still have me as your grandfather in your eyes. Professor Oak immediately criticized Gary. Nara was dumbfounded again. The Gary in front of him was not just a person who knew Professor Oak, but also Professor Oak's grandson. It was amazing. It's just Team Rocket. I am destined to become a Pokémon master in the future. As a trainer of the Alliance, isn't it my duty to stop them? Gary said, really? We better be careful next time. Professor Oak couldn't do anything with Gary and said unhappily, tell me, why did you contact me? Mr. Nara wants to give me a Magnemite to thank me. My Pokémon slots are full, so I need to send 2 Pokémon there. Grandpa, please send Thundershock to me. Gary said. Before, Gary captured Electabuzz near the power plant. He didn't even have time to check its attributes before he found something wrong nearby, and he didn't have time to check it afterwards. Originally, Gary planned to replace Electabuzz after morning practice was over. By the way, the Ultra Ball you sent yesterday was empty. What Pokémon did you capture? Professor Oak suddenly asked. Professor Oak received the Pokémon sent by Gary yesterday. When he saw the Ultra Ball, he ran to open it, but it was empty. There was an Electabuzz in the ordinary Pokeball, and it was quite irritable, but it had been tamed by Professor Oak. Keep it a secret. You will know when I return to Pallet Town. Gary said. Professor Oak did not expect Gary to keep him in suspense. This grandson really does not obey his grandfather at all. Okay, then you can teleport the Pokémon over. Professor Oak did not care. He was well informed. At most, the Pokémon that Gary captured were a little rare. Yeah, Gary teleported Blastoise and Eevee over and reminded Professor Oak not to take off the Everstone that Eevee was carrying. After getting the Electabuzz, Gary ended the call with Professor Oak. Mr. Gary, I will leave the Magnemite to you. I hope it can help you. I will leave first. Nara also handed the little King Lee's Magneto to Gary and left. Gary watched Nara leave and then quickly looked at the attributes of Magnemite and Electabuzz. Pokémon, Magnemite, attribute, electricity, steel, level, 20 potential, elite, ability, analysis. After using the move, the power of the skill will increase. Skills, tackle, thunder shock, thunder wave, Euro ball, spark. Intimacy, 130, maximum value, 255. Pokémon, Electabuzz, attribute, electricity, level, 35. Potential, champion, ability, static electricity. The body carries static electricity, which sometimes paralyzes the rival that touches it. Skills, Leer, thunder shock, charge, shock wave, electromagnetic break, swift, thunder punch, discharge. Intimacy, 100, maximum value, 255, average. Chapter 104. Challenging the Blue Gym. Electabuzz intimacy with me is a bit low. It seems that he is still not convinced by me, Gary whispered. Then, Gary came to the outside of the driving school and released the two Pokémon on the flat ground. Quad, wow. Magnemite was very happy after coming out, but Electabuzz was different, with an indifferent attitude. Electabuzz didn't want to be subdued by Gary at first. After all, it was used to being free in the wild. It was so hard to evolve, but it was subdued by Trainer. It was really aggrieved. Electabuzz, I will help you become stronger, okay? Gary asked with a smile. Wow, Electabuzz ignored Gary. It was already level 35. It was not like ordinary wild Pokémon that had no experience. When it was in the wild, it also saw Trainer training Pokémon, which was nothing more than training Pokémon. Electabuzz felt that as long as he was self-disciplined enough, he didn't need Trainer's help at all. Seeing the indifferent Electabuzz, Gary didn't say anything, but put his palm on the shoulder of the electric beast. Wow. Electabuzz wondered why Gary wanted to touch him, but he didn't say anything, just thinking that Gary wanted to get close to him. But the next moment, Electabuzz was stunned. Electabuzz felt the new skill Awakening 377 and awakened 3 skills at once, which was almost impossible. How about it? You feel the awakening of new skills. Gary said, wow. Electabuzz was very shocked. He didn't expect Gary to teach him skills. This is too powerful. Could it be that trainers can teach Pokémon skills? Then why were the Pokémon sent by the trainers he met not that strong, and they were all knocked down by his punch? This is my personal ability. You have to keep it secret for me. Gary said, wow. Electabuzz hesitated for a moment, but nodded, but soon returned to a look of keeping people away. If Gary hadn't been able to see the Electabuzz attribute, he would have thought that teaching skills did not increase density. Chue. Magnemite was confused. It had no idea what Gary and Electabuzz were talking about, and why the skills suddenly awakened. Magnemite, come and put this in your carrying space. I'll help you become stronger. Gary took out Soothe Bell. Chue. Magnemite directly used magnetism to suck Soothe Bell over and put it in the carrying space. Gary touched the small, Acphi, Magnetron that looked like metal, and taught Signal Beam and Thunderbolt to Magnemite. Chue. QEQ. Magnemite instantly understood why Electabuzz was so surprised. Anyone who encountered this would be surprised. Wow. Electabuzz saw Magnemite's expression and knew that Gary had the special ability to teach Pokémon skills, so he immediately asked Gary to give him a Soothe Bell. Because he saw Gary let Magnemite take the Soothe Bell, he also wanted one. Gary naturally didn't mind. He didn't have much, but he had a lot of Soothe Bells, so he gave one to Electabuzz directly. After dealing with Electabuzz, Gary continued to stay in Azure City to train Pokémon. Half a month later, Pidgeot, Crobat, and Aerodactyl lived up to expectations and mastered the flying bed. Except for Zapdos, The other 5 Pokémon in Gary's hands have been slightly improved. Crobat LV 3941, Pidgeot LV 40-43, Aerodactyl LV 46-50, Magnemite LV 20-30, Electabuzz LV 35-38. Magnemite's level grew so fast, of course, because Gary used low-level rare candy on it. Aerodactyl also used rare candy to reach level 50 so quickly. And today is the day to challenge the Azure Gym. Before going to challenge the gym, Gary teleported Pidgeot back to Professor Oak and replaced Alakazam. It was a bit inconvenient without a psychic Pokemon around to help translate. Pokemon: Alakazam 3 attribute, psychic level 42 potential, quasi-elite ability, psychic, possessing a trained spirit and will not flinch from rivals' attacks. Also unshaken by intimidation. Skills: Teleport, Confusion, Psybeam, Reflect, Miracle Eye, Disable, Psychic, Light Screen, Recover. Professor skills: Dream Eater, Mega Kick, Hypnosis, Signal Beam. Intimacy: 255, maximum 255. Alakazam is growing at normal speed with Professor Oak. Currently, it is already level 40 and has awakened the skill Recover, which is pretty good. After replacing all the Pokemon, Gary rode his mountain bike to the Azure Gym. The entire Azure Gym is a base for breeder flying Pokemon, which occupies a large area and has a special flying field for training flying Pokemon. Gary came to the entrance of the Azure Gym. Ding! Issued task: Get Azure Gym Badge/Reward. Intermediate Rare Candy X10. Hurricane Permanent Skill Learning Device. Top Sharp Beak. Increases the power of flying skills by 50%. X1. It seems that there's not much change. Gary had seen Jin's Pidgeot before, which was level 40, which was higher than the rival that Gary had challenged before. I thought that the task reward for this challenge to the Azure Gym would change a little, but the reward was still intermediate candy. According to the regulations of the Trainer Association, the Pokemon used by gym trainers cannot exceed the gym level. Otherwise, the rookie trainer has no chance of winning. After all, even Agatha, one of the Kanto Alliance Elite Four, temporarily served as the gym leader of the Tokiwa Gym. If Agatha used her own main Pokemon, few trainers will be able to get the badge of the Tokiwa Gym. Gary walked to the door and pressed the middle-style doorbell. Soon a boy came to open the door. "Are you here to challenge the gym?" The boy saw that Gary was dressed as a trainer and was not very old, so he should be here to challenge the gym. "Yes." "Then follow me." The boy took Gary into the gym and came to an empty battlefield. Ajin was standing next to him, watching the Pokemon flying in the sky. "Gym leader, someone is here to challenge the gym," the boy reminded. Ajin turned around when he heard it. When he saw that it was Gary, he was stunned for a moment and said, "You are Gary who is learning flying skills in the driving school." After all, they had been together for half a month, so Ajin naturally remembered Gary and recognized him at a glance. "Mr. Ajin, long time no see." Gary also said hello. Ajin was only in charge of teaching for half a month, and he never came to the driving school after that. It was all up to Gary to supervise the training of the Pokemon. Although Ajin taught the key points of flying, as a coach, he was still not very responsible. Gary decided to beat Ajin's Pokemon in the gym later. Chapter 105. Versus Ajin. Since we are here to challenge the gym, let's get started. Gene had taught Gary's 3 Pokemon, so he knew that Gary was a very capable trainer. A tough battle was inevitable today. "Are we going to fight here?" Gary asked. "Yes, I use flying Pokemon, so soaring in the sky is also within the scope of activity. If you don't have much confidence in your Pokemon, you can give up the challenge now," Gene said. I don't know why, but Gary heard Jin's tone and felt that he was trying to give up, but Gary couldn't give up. After all, there was a mission reward. Gene had a headache. Although he was training at the gym, Gene was not a Pokemon who loved fighting. He enjoyed the freedom of flying more. However, as a gym trainer, he had to accept the challenge when someone came to challenge the gym. Because the Azure Gym's battlefield can use soaring in the sky, it is very passive for most challengers. Even if they have a Pokemon with an attribute advantage, it is very difficult. After all, the range of skills is limited, and the height of soaring in the sky is too high. exceeding the range of all Pokémon skills. Unless it is an electric Pokémon that can rain dance, it can assist Rain Cloud to make the electric moves 100% hit, not giving flying Pokémon any chance to escape. The rules of the game are 3 versus 3. Gene said, "Okay." Gary nodded. "Then let's start." Gene threw out the Pokeball. "Great." LV38 Fiero, 3/Elite. Jin's first Pokemon is a degenerate type that looks like Ho-Oh. Invoke. Crobat. I leave it to you. Gary threw out the Pokeball. LV41 Crobat, 3 Gym. The level difference between the two Pokemon is not big. From the perspective of level, they're evenly matched. The battle begins. Fiero uses Aerial Ace. Gene rushed to attack. Gah! Fiero used Dual Wing Beat to show his superb flying skills and rushed towards Crobat quickly. Screech! Gary ordered immediately. Crobat immediately made a screech sound. Bang! Fiero resisted the influence of Screech and forcibly used Aerial Ace to knock Crobat out. Crobat, who was knocked out, immediately used Air Cutter to counterattack, but Fiero avoided Crobat's attack with his flexible flying skills. As expected of a trainer who specializes in flying Pokémon, Jin's Pokémon is very strong in flying technology. Gary's Crobat is far behind Fiero in flying skills. Although Crobat's species strength is higher than Fiero's, only flying Pokémon that can control the wind direction are the fastest in the air. In this regard, Crobat is obviously not rival. If the battle is in a closed venue, Crobat can still rely on its own advantages to suppress Fiero in speed, but it is difficult in such an open venue. Crobat, use Black Garden when the main road is close. Gary ordered. Hearing this, Crobat calmed down and stayed in the air. Although he could not keep up with the speed for the time being, his hearing was very sharp. He felt that Fiero was attacking him and immediately turned around and used Spit Up Haze. Haze instantly enveloped the condors of the two Pokemon. Not good, Fiero, come out quickly. Gene shouted. Gah! Fiero's wailing sound came from the haze, and a figure rushed out of the haze. It was Fiero, but at this time, there was a purple figure on Fiero's back, and this figure was Crobat. Crobat showed his sharp fangs and pierced into Fiero's body. Toxic was instantly injected into him, and then he quickly distanced himself from Fiero. Fiero turned around while enduring the stinging pain, and his face instantly became sluggish. He was poisoned. What a strong poison! Gene was shocked. The skill Poison Fang is not like the 50% chance of poisoning in the game. If you are really bitten, you will be poisoned 100%. It is toxic. If the toxicity of the Pokemon itself is strong enough, it will be poisoned instantly. Gary knew that the poison of the poisonous Pokemon is also an advantage. The food and energy blocks prepared for Crobat are usually toxic, so as to slowly increase Crobat's poison. It seems to be very effective now. Fiero, come back soon. Agent immediately took out the Pokeball and prepared to take back Fiero. Black eyes. Gary would not give Agent a chance to take back the Pokeball. Crobat's eyes shot out a fascinating light, shining on Fiero, and deflected the infrared rays shot by the Pokeball. What? Agent did not expect Crobat to be prepared for this. Throw. Please give me flowers. Zero. Gary was very troubled because the management of the gym was not standardized yet. Many gym owners did not follow the regulations. After a while, the Trainer Association would strictly manage these gyms. Air Cutter. Gary did not hesitate. Fiero was poisoned, and everything was over. Cross. Crobat used the Air Cutter attack, and Fiero chose to dodge. As he moved, the toxins in his body were quickly triggered. Soon, Fiero's speed slowed down. Crobat chased him and used Cross Poison to smack down him. Bang! Fiero fell to the ground and lost consciousness. Crobat also released Black's eyes at this moment. Gene took Fiero back, secretly feeling that he was careless just now and shouldn't have rushed forward. Otherwise, Crobat wouldn't have caught the opportunity. Oh, Pidgeot, leave it to you. Gene sent out the second Pokemon. Great. LV41 Pidgeot/Gym Pidgeot appeared, and it was the Pidgeot that taught Gary Pokemon the flying technique. Pidgeot was also quite surprised to see Crobat. He was obviously a student he had taught not long ago, but he didn't expect to meet him in a gym battle. Crobat also greeted Pidgeot. Although he was a bat, Crobat was very friendly. Facing the teacher who coached him, he still respected him from the bottom of his heart. Unfortunately, Pidgeot didn't pay any attention to it. It's a gym battle now, not a time to reminisce about the past. Gary reminded. Exe. Crobat nodded, indicating that he would never be careless. Pidgeot, use Air Slash. Gene ordered. A. Pidgeot flapped dual wing beat, and a 2-meter-long wind blade attacked Crobat. Get out of the way. Crobat rose rapidly and dodged the wind blade. Seeing this, Pidgeot fired air blades in succession to chase. Gary pouted. This Pidgeot is really a dog, relying on his good physical strength. He kept attacking with skills. Although Pidgeot's physical strength species strength is only 83, it can only be said to be average. But in reality, Pidgeot's physical strength is terrifying, and flying for a whole day and night is no problem. Use Cross Poison to break through. Gary ordered. Chapter 106. Jin's trump card, Charizard, huh? Crobat's large wings in front were covered with venom, and he swung the air slash that was attacking him. Unfortunately, the air slash was not cut off, and Crobat was pushed back several meters before he bounced it off. Your Pokémon still doesn't understand the wind well enough. A gene preached and changed the command. Use Hurricane. A. Pidgeot flapped dual wing beat frantically, and a huge storm swept half of soaring in the sky, mixed with various wind blades. Crobat wanted to escape, but his speed was not fast enough, and he was swallowed by Hurricane. His body swayed left and right in the wind, and he couldn't stabilize his body. Crobat, use Black Eyes. Gary ordered. Crobat immediately looked in the direction of Pidgeot, and the fascinating Black Eyes beam hit Pidgeot. Come back. Gary saw that Black Eyes hit Pidgeot and quickly took out the Pokeball to take Crobat back. Hey! Seeing Gary take back Crobat, Pidgeot cried out in triumph in the air. Although he did not beat Crobat to the point of losing his ability to fight, being able to repel him was still a small victory. He is really getting carried away. Gary sneered and threw a Pokeball. Great! The yellow Alakazam appeared. LV42 Alakazam 3/Elite. Gary used the last bronze crown on Alakazam, raising its potential to the elite level. Gary would give priority to raising the potential of Pokémon with Mega Evolution forms. There's Alakazam. Gene was shocked. He thought Gary would send out the 3 Pokémon he sent out at the driving school, but he didn't expect that he would have an Alakazam. Psychic Pokémon are notoriously difficult to deal with, especially in the Kanto region, because there are 151 types of Pokémon in the Kanto region, and there is not a single Dark-type Pokémon. So Psychic Pokémon are very dominant in the Kanto region. Pidgeot, use Hurricane. Gene attacked first. Pidgeot immediately flapped dual wing beat, and a huge storm hit Alakazam. Use Light Screen to block it, then use Psychic. Gary ordered. A transparent glass-like light screen appeared in front of Alakazam, completely resisting the storm. Then Alakazam burst out a powerful confusion, instantly restraining Pidgeot in the air. Suppressed by confusion, Pidgeot could not keep balance in the air at all and quickly crashed into the ground. Bang! Pidgeot fell heavily to the ground and was knocked unconscious. Because it flew too high, the damage it suffered from this fall was not light. The damage in battle is not only skill damage, but also falling and collision can cause high damage. Alakazam just used Psychic to make Pidgeot unable to keep balance, and then let Confusion add strength, and easily defeated Pidgeot. Sometimes flying too high is not a good thing, especially for those Pokémon that fly with wings. They all rely on airflow to fly. If they're slightly disturbed, they will easily fall from the air. Ajin took back Pidgeot and threw out the Pokeball. Charizard, you go. Great. A bipedal Charizard with the appearance of a Western dragon appears. LV45 Charizard 3 Gym. Charizard. Gary was surprised. He didn't expect that Gene had another Charizard, and it was level 45. This strength should be able to catch up with the Cinnabar Gym. Charizard can walk on land and in the air, but now Charizard will definitely not choose flying, otherwise it will follow the old path of Pidgeot. Flamethrower. The battle began. Jean issued a direct command. Charizard did not choose flying and opened his mouth to shoot a flame at Alakazam. Alakazam's eyes were glowing blue, and Psychic changed the trajectory of the flame and bounced it back. Energy elements like flames can be controlled by confusion. If the power of the flame is not high enough, it cannot break through confusion's defense. Seeing that flamethrower was ineffective, Jean changed the command. University explosion. Roar. The flames were concentrated in Charizard's chest, ejected a large flame, which formed a big word and rushed towards Alakazam. Alakazam used Psychic at a disadvantage. Boom! Fire Blast was hit by Psychic and exploded. The shockwaves spread out in all directions. The two sides fought evenly, and neither of them had the upper hand. It's so powerful. Gary was shocked. After all, Alakazam carried the top-grade Twisted Spoon, which increased the power of Psychic skills by 50%. With the attribute bonus, the power of Psychic was 1800. But think about it carefully. The Fire Blast skill also has a power of 120, and with the attribute bonus, it is also 180. Charizard's level is 3 levels higher than Alakazam. The strength is really evenly matched. Use Fire Vortex. Ajin knew that he would definitely lose this gym battle because Gary had not defeated any Pokémon and he only had Charizard left. It would take a lot of energy for Charizard to defeat Alakazam in front of him, and he would basically be unable to deal with Gary's remaining 2 Pokémon, especially since Gary might replace Pokémon, which would make him completely defeated. Rather than being completely defeated, he should at least fight 1-for-1 and defeat one of Gary's Pokémon. Otherwise, where would his face as a gym trainer be? However, it was this wrong command that completely cost Charizard the chance to fight 1-for-1. Charizard spit up the flame, and the flame slid on the ground, quickly surrounding Alakazam, forming an encirclement, and the flame suddenly rose. Teleport away. Use Hypnosis on Charizard. Gary suddenly ordered. As soon as he finished speaking, Alakazam suddenly appeared in front of Charizard, with 2 spoons crossed and hypnotic waves emanating. Charizard was manipulating the flame vortex and was caught off guard for a moment and was instantly hit by Hypnosis, and the flame vortex was sluggish. Charizard, wake up quickly. How can you get Hypnosis? Jean shouted. Hypnosis is a skill that can only be used in the early stage. When the Pokemon's strength breaks through to the Elite 2.0 level, other Pokemon will find it difficult to fall asleep after being hit by Hypnosis, unless they are Pokemon that are naturally very sleepy or have low special defense. However, Jean overestimated his own Charizard. Charizard didn't hear what Jean said at all and gradually fell asleep. The game is over. Alakazam, use Dream Eater. Gary ordered. Alakazam used Dream Eater, and his mental energy invaded Charizard's dream, eating Charizard's dream, thereby causing special attack damage to Charizard. Roar! Charizard roared in pain in his sleep and woke up immediately. He looked up at Alakazam and opened his mouth to blast Alakazam with 10 flames. The flames whizzed past, but Alakazam was not seriously injured. Half of the damage of Flamethrower was blocked by Light Screen. Psychic. Chapter 107. Go to Cinnabar Island. Alakazam cast Psychic, and powerful confusion spread out, knocking Charizard away before he could stand up. After 2 consecutive effective attacks, Charizard's physical strength was already on the verge of limit. Roar! Charizard roared. The flame on his tail burned violently, and a lot of hot breath emanated from his body. Gary saw the changes in Charizard and knew that this was the Fierce Fire ability, but he didn't expect it to be triggered by chance. The Fierce Fire ability will only be activated when the Pokemon's physical strength is less than 1/3, and the power of fire skills will be increased by 1.5 times. However, this multiple cannot be determined. Fierce Fire ability has strengths and weaknesses. 1. 5 times is just a normal increase standard. There are many Pokemon with Fierce Fire ability that exceed this standard. For example, Ash's Future Infernape. The Fierce Fire is triggered, which is definitely not just as simple as increasing the power of fire skills. Even Ash's Charizard Fierce Fire ability is not just to increase the power of fire skills. Fire Blast. Jean also tried his best. Roar! Charizard's heat increased again, and he spit up a huge fire blast. 02 after teleport, use Psychic. Gary ordered. Alakazam immediately disappeared from the spot and appeared on Charizard's right side, sending out a powerful confusion, causing Charizard to retreat several meters. Roar! Charizard roared unwillingly, fell backwards to the ground, and his eyes swirled. Although the fierce fire was triggered, it was useless. During the battle, Charizard did not consume too much of Alakazam's mental power. Alakazam could use teleport several times in a row, and Charizard had no chance to turn defeat into victory. After the battle, Jean took back Charizard and took out his own gym badge. This is the blue badge, it's yours. Jean handed the badge in his hand to Gary. Thank you. Gary took the badge. Ding. Mission completed. Rewards have been distributed to the space backpack. Gary took out the badge box, opened it in front of Jean, and put the blue badge in it. You already have 8 badges. Jean was surprised. Yes. Gary looked proud. You have already qualified for the Indigo Plateau Conference this year, so there's no need to continue to challenge the gym. Jean said. Jean was afraid of trouble, and when he saw that Gary already had 8 badges and was challenging him, he was immediately a little upset. Challenging the gym is also part of training Pokémon, and there is no rule that you can't continue to challenge the gym after you have 8 badges. Gary said, then you should do your best. I heard that there is a very strong gym on Cinnabar Island. I suggest you go and have a look. Jean suggested. Gary was slightly surprised. He did plan to target Cinnabar Gym next. He wanted to see if challenging Cinnabar Gym would increase the task rewards issued by the system. Currently, Gary has accumulated 70 intermediate rare candies, which is enough for Gary's existing Pokémon to level 50. Now Gary needs advanced rare candies. Unfortunately, the challenge gym only has intermediate rare candies, so Gary wants to try Cinnabar Gym. To be honest, my next stop is Cinnabar Gym. Gary said. Jean was quite surprised. He thought Gary would ask him about Cinnabar Gym, but he didn't expect that Cinnabar Gym was also within his challenge range. Then do your best. Jean said. Well, goodbye. After leaving the Azure Gym, Gary returned to the Pokémon Center, handed the Pokémon that had been used in the battle to Joy, and then found Sabrina, who was training Eevee in the public field. When he came to the public field, Gary saw Sabrina. Sabrina was very pleasing to the eye, and she would be a top international movie star in the future. Sabrina seemed to feel Gary's gaze, turned around, and found that it was Gary, and walked over happily, saying, Gary, I have good news for you. My Eevee has evolved. Oh, when did it evolve? Gary was shocked. He almost forgot that Sabrina wanted to breed Eevee into a sun Pokémon. Just this morning during training, Sabrina said, took out the Pokeball and opened it. Great. The elegant cat-like sun Pokémon appeared. LV31 Sun Pokémon 3/Quasi-Elite. Gary was stunned when he saw the Sun Pokémon. The 2 EVs I got from the Rainbow Stone Arcade were both gym potential. So why did Sabrina's EV's potential increase by 1 level after it evolved? Sabrina, do you have any special breeder method? Gary asked. It is certain that the Sun Pokémon in front of me is definitely the original EV. Something must have happened to increase the potential of this EV. It must be related to Sabrina. The special breeder method is a psychic method. I can transfer the spiritual power that my calm mind has increased to Pokémon. If it is a psychic Pokémon, there's a chance that the Pokémon's potential will be increased after it evolves. Sabrina said, only psychic Pokémon? Yes. Can it be improved very high? No. Sabrina shook her head and said, it's just a probability increase. I don't know how much the distance is increased. That's what I said. Currently, the potential detection of Pokémon can only detect the gym. The potential above the gym cannot be determined. The key is that the data collected by people on Pokémon is not detailed enough. As more and more data is collected, the potential of a Pokémon can be determined more. After all, Pokémon species are different, so each Pokémon has its own potential evaluation criteria. Normal needs to know this Pokémon very well to accurately judge its potential. Sabrina's method can only be used for psychic Pokémon, but it is unclear how much performance can improve the potential of Pokémon. Gary also believes that there is a probability. After all, When fighting with Sabrina, her Abra evolved into Brave in the battle, and the potential did not change at all. Gary thinks this may have something to do with EV itself. EV's own genes are very unstable and easily affected by external factors, so the probability of potential improvement after evolution will be even higher. Of course, these are all Gary's guesses, and the specific conclusions still need to be determined through experiments. Let's not talk about this. Did you get the badge? Sabrina knew that Gary went to challenge the gym this morning. Of course I got it, Gary said. Now that we have the badge, let's go to Cinnabar Island next. Is there a gym on Cinnabar Island? Sabrina asked. Yes, the Cinnabar gym is very strong. The laboratory there is committed to cultivating stronger Pokémon, and it is a place that many trainers yearn for. Gary said, this is the first time Sabrina has heard of Cinnabar Island. She didn't expect it to be so big. Chapter 108. Meet Ash again. Is the trainer of Cinnabar Gym very powerful? Sabrina asked. Well, I can only say that it was very powerful in the past, but because it was too powerful, no one challenged Cinnabar Gym later, and it has declined over the years. On the contrary, because of the hot springs on Cinnabar Island, it has now become a famous tourist and leisure destination. Gary said, is it similar to the hot springs in the hot spring town? Sabrina's first time taking a hot spring bath was in the hot spring town. Yes, and because of the special geographical relationship, the hot spring there is Volcano Hot Spring, which has a strong beauty effect. Gary said, then what are we waiting for? Let's go in the afternoon. Sabrina said. After experiencing the hot spring town once, Sabrina enjoyed taking a hot spring bath very much. Especially when she heard whether Volcano Hot Spring still had any effect, Sabrina couldn't wait to go. Okay, then let's take a cruise ship. Gary said, cruise ship? There's no sea nearby. Where can there be a cruise ship? Sabrina asked in confusion. Of course we'll fly to a city with a sea. Have you forgotten that my Aerodactyl has mastered the art of flying? The nearest harbor city is only an hour away. Then let's pack our bags. After that, the two returned to the room to pack their bags. After the Pokémon was taken care of by Joy, they left Azure City. Sabrina and Gary took the Aerodactyl and quickly arrived at the nearby harbor city. There happened to be a luxury cruise ship stopping nearby, and the cruise ship would also pass by Cinnabar Island. Gary and Sabrina bought their tickets and boarded the cruise ship, which would arrive at Cinnabar Island in a week. On the cruise ship, Gary didn't train his Pokémon, giving them a 7-day vacation. Unfortunately, Zapdos couldn't be released for the time being. Legendary Pokémon was too eye-catching. Every time he fed it, Gary had to find a closed environment alone, which was quite troublesome. Just like that, we spent 7 days on the cruise ship. We stopped for a while before arriving at Cinnabar Island, and then set off directly to Cinnabar Island. Gary and Sabrina stayed in the leisure area of the cruise ship to rest, but Gary kept paying attention to the situation on the deck. According to the original plot, Gary would meet Ash and his party on the cruise ship. However, Gary did not follow the route in the plot, so he might not meet. However, Gary still underestimated the power of fate. Ash and his party really boarded the cruise ship, but Ash and his party bought ordinary business tickets and were not eligible to enter the luxury area of the cruise ship. Sabrina, I met someone I know, Gary said. Sabrina was wearing a white one-piece swimsuit, took off her sunglasses, and looked in the direction Gary was looking and saw Ash and his group. Gary, I noticed that you pay a lot of attention to that, Ash. Why? Sabrina asked. Sabrina didn't ask before, but she found that every time Gary met Ash, he would take the initiative to find Ash. It seemed that he was teasing Ash, but in fact he was encouraging him. If Ash really encountered something, Gary would not ignore it, because he is my playmate since childhood and he is very resilient. Although this guy has many problems, I think one day I will meet him at the top, said Gary. Sabrina was surprised. The Gary she knew was always very conceited. She didn't expect him to think so highly of Ash. Waiter, Gary waved his hand. A young woman came over and asked politely, Sir, what can I do for you? Can you help me call those people up? Gary pointed to Ash and his group inside the deck fence. Are they 3 people, 2 men and 1 woman? Yes. Okay, please wait a moment, sir. Although Ash and his group did not buy the luxury S.S ticket, Gary bought the luxury S.S ticket and was eligible to invite people up, but he could only come up and could not enjoy the service. Ash and his group were still discussing the Cinnabar gym and were invited to the luxury area by the waitress who suddenly appeared. They were still wondering who would invite them. Guest, your invited guests are here. The waiter took Ash and his party to the luxury area and walked to Gary to remind him. Gary was sitting on a recliner with his back to Ash and the other two. They couldn't tell who was sitting on the chair and were very puzzled. They didn't know any rich relatives. They were very concerned about the other party's identity. Got it. You can get busy. Okay. The waiter left. This voice. Ash was the first to react and felt that the voice was very familiar. Ash, can't you even recognize my voice? Gary stood up from the recliner. Gary. Ash was shocked. He didn't expect to meet Gary here. Misty and Xiao were stunned, but thinking that Gary was the grandson of Professor Oak, it was normal for him to be able to afford the luxury S.S ticket. Grave accent Gary, why are you here? Ash asked. Of course I'm going to Cinnabar Island for vacation and take down the badge of Cinnabar Gym, by the way. Gary said, that's a coincidence. I also plan to challenge Cinnabar Gym. Let's see who gets the Cinnabar Gym badge first. Ash suggested. After being defeated by Gary last time, Ash knew that he was not strong enough, but 2 months later, Ash's self-confidence returned. It's boring. You will definitely lose. Gary said, what are you talking about? We haven't even competed yet. How do you know I will lose? Ash said, unconvinced. This time it's not a battle with Gary, but to see who can get the Cinnabar Gym badge first. Whoever gets to Cinnabar Gym first will have a better chance of winning. Because Cinnabar Gym has been closed for a long time, and now Cinnabar Island is a tourist attraction. Where can you challenge it? Gary said, what? Cinnabar Gym is closed? How is that possible? Ash immediately looked at Xiao and asked, Xiao, didn't you just say that Cinnabar Island is the place that trainers admire? I also heard about it from my father when I was a child. After so many years, I don't know the current situation of Cinnabar Gym. Xiao said, what? Ash was speechless for a while, but suddenly thought of something and immediately looked at Gary and asked, since Cinnabar Gym is closed, Gary, can't you challenge it yourself? Cinnabar Gym is closed, but it doesn't mean Blaine is not there. He just thinks Rival is too weak and doesn't want to accept the challenge of those weak trainers. But my strength will definitely be recognized by Blaine, and he will agree to fight me. Gary said, is the owner of Cinnabar Gym called Blaine? Ash asked, you haven't changed at all. You didn't even ask before challenging a gym. And you want to compete with me to see who can get the Cinnabar Gym badge first. You are so confident. Gary complained. My team, Chapter 109. Cinnabar Island. After listening to what Gary said, Ash felt very embarrassed. He had no information and wanted to compete with Gary. If Gary really agreed to compete, Ash thought that he couldn't even find Blaine, so he would definitely lose. Then Gary, do you know Blaine? Ash asked. No. 3 Murkrows flew over the heads of Ash and the other 2. What? You don't even know Blaine after all this time? Ash thought Gary knew Blaine and wanted to follow Gary to find Shibo. Why are you so anxious? Don't you mean you haven't collected all 8 badges yet? If you can't find Blaine, your trip will be in vain. Gary said, did you collect all 8 badges? Ash said, unconvinced. Ash's process of collecting badges is very difficult. He has only collected 6 badges so far, and he is still 2 badges away from the entry standard of Indigo Plateau Conference. Gary didn't waste any words. He took out the badge box and opened it. There were 9 badges neatly arranged inside. 1, 2, 3. What? You have 9 badges. Ash was shocked. Ash remembered that 2 months ago, Gary only had 1 more badge than him. How come he has 3 more badges now? Instantly, Ash felt that he didn't need to compete with Gary in the number of badges, and he had completely distanced himself from him. It's amazing he actually collected 9 badges. Ash has all the badges, and Gary also has them. Misty observed carefully. Let's not talk about this. Let's talk about Cinnabar Gym. Ash quickly changed the subject and said, Gary, how are you going to challenge Cinnabar Gym? Go find Blaine. Gary said, don't you know Blaine? Ash asked in confusion. I don't know him, but Blaine is also a researcher. Cinnabar Laboratory. You can find Blaine directly at the laboratory. Gary said, I see. Then when we get to Cinnabar Island, we will go directly to Cinnabar Laboratory, and I will challenge Blaine first. Ash said, I advise you to challenge after me. Watch the battle between me and Blaine first. See what kind of Pokemon Blaine has, and learn my fighting style by the way, so that you will have a greater chance of defeating Blaine. Gary suggested, What? Learn from you. I don't want to. I have my own fighting style. Ash retorted, but Ash regarded Gary as a strong rival. How could he learn the fighting style of a strong rival? It's up to you anyway. I want to challenge Blaine first. Gary didn't care. After all, Ash is still a child now and needs to calm down. Why should I let you challenge Blaine first? Please, if it weren't for me, even if you wanted to find Blaine, it would take you a day or two. I saved you this time. Shouldn't I challenge first? Okay, then let you challenge first. I want to see how good you are. Ash said, although Ash is a child, he is still very reasonable. Repaying a favor is Ash's life motto. Misty and Xiao looked at Ash being played around by Gary and shook their heads helplessly. Who said not to learn other people's styles just now? Now, they want to watch Gary's battle. It's really hypocritical. Pikachu. Pikachu also shook his head helplessly. Hey, you haven't evolved Pikachu yet. Gary looked at Pikachu and said, LV39 Pikachu 3/champion. After not seeing for a while, Pikachu's level has also increased, but the level is not high, still in the elite range. My Pikachu is not going to evolve. Ash said, Pika. On this point, Pikachu and Ash are in the same camp. Why? After evolution, the strength of Pokemon will be greatly improved. Why not evolve? Gary asked. No reason, just my Pikachu doesn't want to evolve, so it won't evolve. Ash said, I see. Then your Pikachu will have a hard time in the future. Gary said, Hard time? What do you mean? Pikachu. Ash and Pikachu were both confused. Aka, why would there be hard time if they didn't evolve? Pokemon evolution is normal growth. If a Pokemon chooses not to evolve, its potential will be difficult to tap quickly, and its level will increase very slowly. Gary explained, Is it really like that? But my Pikachu is very strong. Ash didn't think there was anything wrong with Pikachu at all. Pika. Pikachu nodded in agreement. He is very strong. You can take a look at the other evolved Pokemon in your hand. Whether they're higher than Pikachu in level, your Pikachu's strength has not fallen behind. It is entirely because you have been breeding Pikachu. If you relax a little, Pikachu's level will lag behind your other Pokemon. Gary said. Ash was stunned. After thinking carefully, Pikachu was indeed surpassed by the Pokemon that joined the team later. And the most obvious one was Charizard. Charizard is the strongest Pokemon in Ash's hand at present. It's okay if it's slow, I don't care. Ash said, Pikachu. Pikachu was immediately moved by Ash and decided to reward Ash for this gym battle. He would fight seriously and never water ski. As long as you are happy, by the way, there are free drinks and snacks over there. You can go and taste them. They taste good. Gary said, Where are they? If you don't take advantage of it, you are ABD. How can you let go of such a good opportunity? It's over there. Gary pointed to a long table not far away, on which various fruits and snacks were placed. Ash immediately ran over to taste it, and Misty and Xiao followed him. 3 hours later, the cruise ship arrived at Dahongjun town. Gary and Sabrina followed Ash and his group off the cruise ship, entered Cinnabar Island, and came to the Pokemon Center. Because he wants to challenge Blaine, Gary's current Pokemon are not suitable for the challenge, so he needs to exchange 2 Pokemon. Gary plans to temporarily send Electabuzz and Magnemite over, and exchange Blastoise and Ultra Iron Tyrannosaurus. The video call is connected. Gary, where are you now? Seeing his grandson calling after a long time, Inkimbo asked with concern. Currently in Cinnabar Island. Oh, Cinnabar Island. It's the place of training and longing. It seems that he plans to challenge Cinnabar Gym. Professor Oak said. Professor Oak, hello. Ash suddenly squeezed next to Gary and showed his face. Ash, you are with Gary. Professor Oak was also surprised to see Ash suddenly appear. Yes, I also plan to challenge Cinnabar Gym, and I met Gary on the way. Ash said, Then you should do your best. Professor Oak encouraged. Chapter 110. Taking an Ash and his party, Grandpa. Help me send Blastoise and Super Iron Tyrannosaurus over here. After chatting for a while, Gary also talked about business, which was to replace Pokémon. It seems that you attach great importance to this gym competition. Wait a minute, I'll go get it, Professor Oak said. Ash had a dazed look on his face. He also heard what Professor Oak said just now, which means that Blastoise and Super Iron Tyrannosaurus are very strong Pokémon in Gary's hand now. Gary, what kind of Pokémon is Super Iron Tyrannosaurus? Ash asked. You can't read Pokédex. Ash took out the Pokeball Pokédex and asked the Pokédex. Pokédex, tell me what Pokémon Super Iron Tyrannosaurus is. Pokédex. There is no information about this Pokémon in the database. No information, Ash said in surprise. Super Iron Tyrannosaurus evolved from Rhydon. It is rare in Kanto region and only in Sinnoh region. Xiaojing explained. As a trainer of Rock-type gym, Xiaojing is very familiar with Rock-type Pokémon. Since it evolved from Rhydon, why is there no one in Kanto region? Misty asked in confusion. Because Rhydon needs to evolve into Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. It needs an item called Protector. The raw materials of this item are unique to Sinnoh region, so there are almost no wild Super Iron Tyrannosaurus in Kanto region. Only trainers can prepare Protector to evolve Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Xiaojing said. Yes, Xiaojing is right. Gary nodded in agreement. Although Xiaojing is a big sister control, he still has a deep knowledge of Pokémon, enough to serve as Ash's teacher. Is Super Iron Tyrannosaurus strong? Ash asked. Super Iron Tyrannosaurus is a very strong rock-type Pokémon. There is one in my family's gym, and it is usually taken care of by my younger brother. Xiaojing said. Ah, then why didn't I meet him during the gym battle? Ash asked. You were just a rookie at the time. If I had used the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus, you would have never been able to pass. Xiaojing said. Ah. Ash always thought that Onix was Xiaojing's strongest Pokémon, but he didn't expect that Xiaojing didn't even use his full strength. Of course, my family's gym also has Pokémon left by my father and mother. If I use those Pokémon to fight, those trainers who think my gym is weak will never get the badge. Xiaolu said. So, the gym owners of the gyms I challenged before were all letting me win, Ash said in disbelief. That's not the case. New gyms shouldn't be letting me win. All old gyms are letting me win more. For example, the Fuchsia Gym is giving away badges, which is only slightly better than the Cerulean Gym. Gary waved his hand. What did you say? What do you mean by better than the Cerulean Gym? Misty was immediately unhappy. Her father was not weak. You can check it online. Koga was invited to serve as the Elite Four of the Johto Region Alliance. You don't think your gym is really stronger than others, do you? Gary said. What? Elite Four? Misty was shocked. This was the first time she heard about this. Misty was silent immediately. She knew how strong the Elite Four was. If that was true, the Pokémon in her gym were really not Koga's rival. What is the Elite Four? Ash asked in a puzzled way. The Elite Four are the 4 strongest trainers in a region, and there are even stronger champions above them. Don't you even know this? Misty said in astonishment. After being together for so long, I thought Ash was a rookie, but I didn't expect that he didn't even have any basic knowledge. Haha, this is the first time I know about it. Ash was also a little embarrassed by his ignorance, and immediately asked, Are the Elite Four all strong? Gary, you brought all the Pokémon you wanted. At this time, Professor Oak came to the screen with 2 Pokeballs in his hand. Grandpa, teleport here, Gary said. After getting the Pokeball, Gary hung up the phone with Professor Oak. Let's go. Find a place to stay first, and then go find Blaine tomorrow. Gary said. Okay, where do we stay? Ash asked. It seems that you are really unprepared. Cinnabar Island is now a holy place for sightseeing. It is basically full. You need to make an appointment in advance before coming. You don't have a reservation. Gary said. Ah, you still need to make an appointment? Can't you stay at the Pokémon Center? Ash asked. You can go and ask. Everyone came to the front desk of the Pokémon Center to ask. I'm sorry, there are too many people coming to Cinnabar Island today. The Pokémon Center is already full and can't provide accommodation. You could go to the hotel outside. Joy apologized. Zero seeking flowers, zero what? Ash encountered this situation for the first time and didn't know what to do for a while. Then the other hotels must be full. So are we going to be homeless? Misty said with a headache. Come with me, I've booked a B&B. Although there are only 2 rooms, the living room is still very large, and you can sleep on the floor. Gary said generously. Really? That's great. Thank you very much. Misty and Xiao thanked him immediately. Gary, you are so loyal. You are worthy of being my best friend. Ash also forgot that Gary was his rival at this moment. In front of food, everything could be put aside. The most luxurious B&B in Cinnabar Island. It was almost dinner time when Gary and his friends arrived at the B&B. Gary ordered a set meal of mountain and sea delicacies, which made Ash and the other 2 very greedy. Wow, this salmon roe sushi is so delicious. Ash was like a glutton, stuffing food into his mouth continuously, eating happily. Pa! Pa! Gary clapped his hands and said, Boss, the show is about to begin. The lady boss opened the screen, and 3 beautiful ladies in kimonos appeared. Oh, Xiao was so excited when he saw the 3 beautiful ladies that he would have rushed over if Misty hadn't pulled him. However, just as everyone was enjoying the food and listening to the songs, a round pink ball-like object walked in. LV-30 Jigglypuff / Elite. Oh, Jigglypuff. Gary was startled. He naturally knew that this Jigglypuff was the one that often appeared in Ash's travels. I didn't expect this Jigglypuff to have the potential to be an elite. Unfortunately, Gary had no interest in Jigglypuff, especially this Jigglypuff who loved Sing. If he really captured it, it would be a pain. And this one Jigglypuff will also appear in the subsequent plot. If you really tame it, it may change future events, so it is better not to tame it. It's that Jigglypuff. Hurry up, don't let it sing. Misty saw Jigglypuff and quickly reminded him. Chapter 111. Team Rocket steals Pokémon. Ash and Brock were also panicked. They had suffered a lot from this Jigglypuff. Bowly, Jigglypuff was very happy to see the idol playing music. He immediately ran over and wanted to sing a song, but his body suddenly couldn't move and automatically floated toward Sabrina. Bowly, Jigglypuff wanted to struggle, but he had no strength to struggle. In front of Sabrina, Pokémon below the gym strength could not resist her. Even Gary didn't know how strong Sabrina was. Seeing Jigglypuff was controlled, Ash and others breathed a sigh of relief. Is there something wrong with this Jigglypuff? Gary could only ask knowingly. This Jigglypuff likes to sing very much. People around him are always hypnotized. If they fall asleep, Jigglypuff will be very angry and smear things on our faces. Misty answered. Ash and Xiao nodded frequently. They had been painted on the face by Jigglypuff many times. What should we do now? We can't control Jigglypuff all the time. Ash said, Leave it to me. Sabrina turned Jigglypuff towards herself, her eyes emitting blue light. After a while, Jigglypuff became drowsy and fell asleep. Sabrina put aside to rest. You can all leave. Seeing Jigglypuff fall asleep, Gary also asked the Geishas to leave, so as not to wake Jigglypuff up again. Seeing the Geishas leaving, Xiao was reluctant to leave. After eating and drinking, everyone came to an independent hot spring pool to soak in the hot spring. There was also a partition in the middle of the hot spring to separate men and women. It's so comfortable. Ash soaked in the hot spring and felt that all the fatigue he had in recent times was swept away. Gary looked at the night sky and admired the beauty of the stars. What do you see there? Gary saw something floating in the night sky, but because it was night, he couldn't see what it was. What is that? It looks like a hot air balloon. Ash and Brock also looked puzzled, but Brock's eyesight was better after all. Squinting eyes focused and could see more clearly. Indeed, there was a hot air balloon floating in the night sky, and a huge bag was hanging below it. From time to time, a woo sound could be heard. That hot air balloon is Team Rocket. Ash finally saw the shape of the hot air balloon and immediately recognized it as Team Rocket. Gary was also shocked. He almost forgot about the Rocket Trio. These guys still escaped from prison. And this time, the Rocket Trio's target was not Ash, but was doing other bad things. There was a huge net bag under the hot air balloon, which contained various Pokémon. I don't know where they caught the Pokémon. Gary was also dumbfounded. Could it be that because of his two actions, the Rocket Trio changed their target and no longer wanted to steal Ash's Pikachu? They must have stolen other people's Pokémon. Go, Pidgeotto! Ash immediately released Pidgeotto and ordered, Pikachu, you work with Pidgeotto to rescue the Pokémon. Gary was also stunned. Ash actually hit a Pokeball in his bathrobe. When did he become so simple? Bye! Pidgeotto lowered the altitude, and Pikachu jumped directly onto Pidgeotto's back, riding Pidgeotto to fly to soaring in the sky. The two Pokémon flew into the sky and quickly approached the hot air. Pikachu used Thunderbolt to blow up Meowth's hot air balloon. Gary soon heard the classic stance line. What a disgusting feeling. The three members of Team Rocket flew to the distant shore with a hot air balloon. However, everything was not over. Team Rocket was driven away, but the Pokémon in the net bag were falling. If they fell from this height, they would be crippled if not dead. No, those Pokémon are going to fall, Gary reminded. Ash also realized his problem instantly, but he had no way to remedy it. Gary wanted to remedy it, but he didn't have any Pokémon with him, so there was no good way for a while. Gary and Ash could only watch the Pokémon in the net bag fall down. At this critical moment, the falling Pokémon suddenly stopped in the air and then suddenly fell down again. But there was already a buffer of stagnation, so it was okay for a while. Xiao, let's take a look at these Pokémon. Okay. Although Ash and Xiao were wondering what was going on, they were more worried about the condition of the Pokémon in the net bag. It should be Sabrina, Gary thought. The next second, Sabrina and Misty in bathrobes appeared next to the net bag. Sabrina, Misty, seeing Sabrina and Misty suddenly appear, Ash instantly understood what was going on. What happened here? Sabrina and I suddenly saw Pikachu and Team Rocket in the sky. Misty said. Misty and Sabrina were originally taking a hot spring bath, but spark flashed on soaring in the sky. When they looked up, they saw Pidgeotto and Pikachu and a net bag filled with a bunch of Pokémon. The hot air balloon exploded after being attacked by Thunderbolt, and the net bag fell. Although Sabrina didn't know what was going on, she still rescued the Pokémon in the net bag. After that, she brought Misty to see what was going on. It's all Team Rocket. Ash told the two girls what happened just now. Really, Ash didn't consider the consequences before taking action. Fortunately, Miss Sabrina was here, otherwise these Pokémon would be injured. Misty said angrily, I know, I will pay attention next time. Ash's attitude of admitting his mistakes is sincere when it comes to Pokémon. The Pokémon in the net bag are very friendly to Gary and the others, and they cooperated well when checking their injuries. After making sure they are all fine, Xiao asked, these Pokémon should have been stolen by Team Rocket. Let's leave it to Miss Junsha to deal with it. No one had any opinions, and Gary was ready to make a phone call. However, at this moment, the innkeeper suddenly arrived and brought someone with her. 2.3 Everyone excuse me. Gary and others looked at the proprietress. The person the proprietress brought was an old Mediterranean man. Blaine. Gary recognized the other party's identity at a glance. It seems that these Pokémon are from Cinnabar Laboratory. The Rocket Trio is really brave. This Cinnabar Laboratory is related to Mutwo, and it should be funded by Team Rocket. They ran to steal Pokémon. Is it considered embezzlement? Sorry, these Pokémon belong to our laboratory. They were captured by a group of bad guys just now. I chased them all the way here. Blaine stepped forward to explain. So they are your Pokémon, old man. I have saved them, Ash said proudly. Really? Blaine looked at Ash, and seeing the Pikachu next to Ash, he also believed that what Ash said was true. Chapter 112. Blaine, thank you for your help. If you don't mind, how about visiting Cinnabar Laboratory tomorrow? Blaine said, Cinnabar Laboratory is an institution that specializes in researching powerful Pokémon. I heard that the Pokémon inside are very strong. Xiao reminded. Really, old man. Then we will go visit it tomorrow and find Mr. Blaine to fight by the way. Ash said. When Blaine heard that Ash was going to fight Blaine, he was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that someone would challenge him. Because Cinnabar Island has become a tourist destination, many trainers challenge the gym with a playful mentality, which made Blaine unable to feel the fun of fighting, so he closed the gym. No one has challenged him for many years. Now he heard that someone was going to challenge him, which was a bit surprising. Can I ask why you want to challenge Blaine? Blaine asked. Of course, it's to get the Cinnabar Gym badge. Ash said, but the Cinnabar Gym is closed. Even if you beat Blaine, you can't get the badge. Blaine said, ah. Ash was confused. He had never thought about this problem. His original goal was to collect badges. Gary, Blaine has closed the gym. Even if I win, I won't get a badge. What should I do? Ash immediately asked Gary for help. I don't care. I have already collected all the badges for the Indigo Plateau Conference. I just want to compete with Blaine. It doesn't matter whether I get the badge or not. Gary said, what? Ash was desperate. There were less than 3 months left before the Indigo Plateau Conference, and he still needed 2 badges. Blaine also looked at Gary. He didn't expect that these 2 teenagers would challenge him. The key point is that the accommodation in this hotel is not cheap. Are these 2 people really not here to try it out for fun? Also, Professor Blaine, there is no need to hide your identity. Gary pointed out the identity of the gardener. What? He is Blaine. Is this true? Ash and the other 2 couldn't believe that the old man in front of them was Blaine, the owner of Cinnabar Gym. Young man, how did you recognize me? Blaine didn't deny it, but was surprised how Gary knew him. I'm the grandson of Professor Oak. You had academic exchanges with my grandfather before, and I remember you, Gary said. Oh, you are the grandson of Professor Oak. Blaine was shocked. He did communicate with Professor Oak a few years ago, but he didn't expect Gary to still remember him. Yes, Professor Blaine, I checked online. Cinnabar Gym is still in operation. If you want to close the gym, you must get the approval of the Pokémon Alliance. If you close the gym, you will be punished by the Kanto Alliance, and then it will affect the funding of Cinnabar Laboratory. I understand. Blaine interrupted Gary and said, I didn't close the gym, but only the trainers who are recognized by me are qualified to challenge me. You 2 rescued the Pokémon in the laboratory. I agree with you, but you have to answer a question first. Then I will accept your challenge. Blaine was trying to save face, and Gary didn't expose it. What question? Ash asked. What type of Pokémon do I like most? Blaine asked. Ash, how do I know what type of Pokémon you like? Professor Blaine should like fire Pokémon the most. Gary answered. That's right. My Pokémon are all fire Pokémon burning with blazing flames. Blaine said, great. Then when will we have a battle tomorrow? Ash asked, you are really impatient. Blaine found that Gary and Ash have completely different personalities. One is calm and the other is impatient. Tomorrow morning, you'll come to visit Cinnabar Laboratory, and then we will have a battle. Blaine said, Gary and I will fight you, Mr. Bow. Do your Pokémon need a rest? Ash asked, there are many Pokémon in the laboratory. It's just a 3-on-3 match, which is enough to deal with you. Besides, I'm very strong, not comparable to the gym trainers you met before. Blaine said, although Blaine is a researcher, he was also a trainer when he was young. Even though he became a researcher, he never wasted his time as a trainer. Blaine opened the Cinnabar Gym to satisfy his own battle addiction and test the strength of the Pokémon in the laboratory. Cinnabar Laboratory has always been committed to researching powerful Pokémon, so they all conduct research on Pokémon genes, and the Pokémon they have researched need to be tested in battle to test their strength. Normally, Blaine would use the Pokémon in the laboratory for gym battles, but when the hot spring appeared on Cinnabar Island, everything changed. Those weak trainers could not detect the Pokémon in the laboratory at all. Over time, Cinnabar Laboratory also declined. After all, practice is the only criterion for testing truth. Gary and Ash came to Cinnabar Laboratory early in the morning. Welcome. Welcome, come in with me. Blaine was waiting for Gary and the others at the door early in the morning. 020 Mr. Blaine, when can we start the battle? Ash asked hurriedly. No hurry. Let's take a look at the Pokémon in the laboratory first. Blaine said. Ash was still a little reluctant, but was pulled over by Misty and angrily said, Ash, why are you in such a hurry? Even if we challenge, Gary will challenge first. Oh, I forgot. Ash then remembered the agreement with Gary on the cruise ship. This time, Gary would challenge Cinnabar Gym first. Gary shook his head helplessly. Except for the agreed battle, Ash basically forgot everything else after sleeping, and Gary was used to it. Professor Blaine, don't worry about this guy. Let's visit the Pokémon in the laboratory. Gary said. Gary now wants to see the Pokémon in the Cinnabar Laboratory more because in the animation, Blaine and Dr. Fuji know each other, and they both wanted to research powerful Pokémon at the beginning. However, Dr. Fuji wanted to create artificial Pokémon through cloning, which caused a conflict with Blaine. In addition, after his daughter's death, Dr. Fuji left Cinnabar Laboratory and joined Team Rocket to conduct experiments on artificial Pokémon. Cinnabar Laboratory is where Mewtwo was first born, and the theories were also proposed here. Chapter 113. Cinnabar Laboratory. The interior of Cinnabar Laboratory is not very big. There are 3 floors in total. The first and second floors are laboratories for research and academic discussions. The third floor is where Pokémon live in the laboratory, and there is a room dedicated to monitoring Pokémon data. The backyard is an open space, which is also used for Pokémon activities or battles. Gary and his friends wanted to see the Pokémon in the laboratory, so Blaine naturally took them to the third floor for a tour. Professor Blaine, has Cinnabar Laboratory come into contact with fossil revival technology now? Gary asked. I didn't expect you to know this. Fossil revival technology has been under development. It has been developed, but it has not been announced yet. Some other laboratories have also developed it. Yuanbo said, what is fossil revival technology? Ash asked in surprise. It is to restore fossils into Pokémon through modern technology. Gary said simply. Can this be done? Misty said in shock. Of course it can be done. Rock also has life, and ancient fossils can definitely be restored. The laboratory in my museum has been studying this. Xiao Gang said, can fossils really be revived? Ash was also a little skeptical. Reviving fossils is too sci-fi. Of course, if you have ancient Pokémon fossils in the future, you can come to me and I can help you revive them for free. Blaine said, really? Xiao Gang was shocked. Yeah, what? Do you have fossils? Blaine asked in confusion. To be honest, I used to be the owner of the pewter gym, and I have a lot of fossils in my home. Xiao Gang said. Although Xiao Gang in the animation is lustful, he's also a stone collector. Before his parents ran away from home, Xiao Gang would go to the pewter museum to help when he had nothing to do. After he had Pokémon, he often went to Empty Moon to look for stones. Moreover, his father and grandfather were also fossil collectors, and there were many fossils stored in the gym. Pewter Gym, it has been open for decades. If you have fossils, you can come to me, Blaine said. Although it's free help, Blaine actually wants experimental data. After all, fossil revival technology is still not perfect. Even if it has been developed, it has not been announced to the public. At present, there are many companies that have mastered fossil revival technology. Gary knows that there are Cinnabar Laboratory, Sylph Company, Devon Group, and villain organizations such as Team Rocket and Team Plasma also have this technology. Thank you very much. Xiaojiang was very happy and planned to bring the fossils here to revive after the journey. Ash and Misty were very envious. That was an ancient Pokémon, but a very rare Pokémon. Let me show you the latest research of our laboratory. Blaine led everyone to a room full of EV, with a total of 3 EV. EV, is there anything wrong with these EV? They all look normal. Ash and the other 2 didn't see any problems with the EV. They were all very healthy EV. And Gary saw the extraordinariness of these EV through the eye of insight. LV30 EV3/champion. LV33 EV3/quasi-legend. Gary was shocked. He didn't expect these 3 EVs to have such high potential. One of them was even a quasi-legendary EV. It was so scary. Professor Blaine, these 3 EVs should have high potential. Gary said, as expected of Professor Oak's grandson, you can see the key at a glance. Blaine praised. These 3 EVs not only have high potential, but their species strength is also stronger than other EVs of the same type. Misty and Xiaojiang's mouths were in an O shape. Only Gary and Ash looked calm. Gary was really calm, while Ash was calm inexplicably. What is species strength? Ash asked. 18-inch. When Ash said this, Blaine was silenced. Sorry, Ash doesn't know much about the basics of Pokémon. Gary quickly explained. Species strength represents the racial ability of a Pokémon, that is, physical strength, attack, defense, and speed. The species is basically innate. In most cases, the species strength of Pokémon of the same type is not much different, but some individual Pokémon have higher species strength than the same type, which is considered an individual difference. This kind of high species strength Pokémon normal rarely reproduces. I see. I understand. Ash nodded and said, so these EV's species strength is higher than the normal species strength. That's right. Gary was not surprised by this. According to the game classification, the species strength of Pokémon is fixed, but it is different in the animation. Some Pokémon individuals mutate, and their species strength is higher than their own. Ash, your Pikachu's species strength should be higher than the normal Pikachu. Gary said, really? Pikachu, Ash, and Pikachu were very surprised. They didn't expect Pikachu's species strength to be higher than that of ordinary Pikachu. We can tell whether it is higher or not by a simple test. We have the basic data of Pikachu here. Why don't we give it a try? Blaine suggested. Okay, then Pikachu, let's test it. Ash was very interested. Pikachu didn't mind the test. Then come in with me. Blaine led everyone into the room where the 3 EVs were. When the 3 EVs saw someone coming in, they all came over curiously. They usually stayed in the laboratory and were very curious when they saw people coming in from outside. An EV came up to Pikachu, as if asking who Pikachu was. Pikachu answered Eevee's question as if introducing himself, and then Pikachu and Eevee came together to chat. Gary took everything in, as expected of a Pokémon succubus. As soon as he entered the room, he attracted the attention of an EV. Gary was watching the situation over there with Ash, and heard growl coming from below. Gary looked down and saw an EV at his feet. LV30 EV3/Quasi-Legend. This is an EV with quasi-legendary potential. Gary really wants to take it away, but Blaine must know the value of these 3 EVs and will not give them away easily. After all, Blaine is also a trainer. Eevee can evolve into a fire Pokémon, and Naoki will most likely evolve the strongest of his main Eevee into a fire Pokémon. Hello, Eevee. Gary squatted down and touched Eevee's furry body. Because he had bred Eevee before, Gary knew how to comb Eevee's fur most comfortably. Chapter 114, Special Eevee Chi. Eevee looked very happy. Because Ash's Pikachu was going to be tested for species strength, Blaine asked the other people in the laboratory to take them to visit the Pokémon in the laboratory. Primo, take the others to visit the Pokémon in the laboratory. Blaine said, okay, everyone please follow me. Primo led everyone out. Gary also planned to go and see the other Pokémon in the laboratory, but the next second, the Eevee following Gary followed Gary's thigh and jumped directly onto Gary's shoulder. What? Do you want to follow? Gary asked. Eevee nodded obediently. Can that Eevee go with us to visit? Seeing that Eevee wanted to follow, Gary asked Primo. Of course, this Eevee seems to like you very much. Primo said he was responsible for taking care of the Pokémon in the laboratory and knew the temperaments of the 3 EVs. Is that so? Gary touched Eevee's head on his shoulder. Although the little guy liked him very much, it was useless because he couldn't take him away. Come on, I'll take you to continue the tour. Primo took Gary and the others to visit the Pokémon in the laboratory. There were quite a lot of Pokémon in the laboratory, with more than 30 types, and most of them were fire and ground-type Pokémon. These Pokémon had also been genetically modified. These genetic modifications were made when these Pokémon were still Pokémon eggs, or even from their parents. Gary didn't know what method Cinnabar Laboratory used. The Pokémon born in the laboratory had high potential, and the worst were above the gym level. Although some breeding masters can do it, the high-potential Pokémon that the breeding masters breed must first have excellent parents. And the Pokémon born in Cinnabar Laboratory had parents with average potential. At most, they were elites or gym potential, and none of them were above gym potential. Gary also learned from Primo that Blaine's wish was that there would be no weak Pokémon in the world, and even the weakest Pokémon could become stronger, so Blaine didn't care. Pokémon's strength, wanting all Pokémon to have the opportunity to become stronger. I have to say, Blaine's wish is great. Other researchers are thinking about studying powerful Pokémon, and there are very few ACFI researchers like Blaine who can treat everyone equally. Basically, most researchers will be determined to study legendary Pokémon in the later stages. Legendary Pokémon was equivalent to gods in ancient times. Those who did scientific research would eventually focus on legendary Pokémon. Even Blaine would not be exempt from this. Blaine also participated in the data theory of artificial Pokémon. Later, Dr. Fuji took away all the artificial Pokémon technical documents of Cinnabar Laboratory. Otherwise, Dr. Fuji alone might not be able to create Mutwo. Okay, we can go back. There are not many Pokémon in the laboratory. The tour was finished in half an hour, and Primo was ready to take everyone back. Mr. Primo, are the Pokémon in Cinnabar Laboratory for sale? Gary asked. In Gary's opinion, there are too few Pokémon in Cinnabar Laboratory. The main reason is that Cinnabar Laboratory has existed for so many years, and there must be profitable projects. Otherwise, passion alone cannot generate electricity without capital injection. Of course, it is sold to the public, but the price is very expensive. Which Pokémon did you take a fancy to, Mr. Gary? Primo asked enthusiastically. Gary just asked casually, but he didn't expect Primo to be so enthusiastic. It could be seen that Cinnabar Laboratory is very short of money now. After all, Blaine has been forced to open a B&B to make money, so he should be sure of research funds. How much is this EV? Gary pointed at the EV on his shoulder. The little guy was lying all the way, and he didn't feel uncomfortable. This EV is not for sale. It is a defective product. Primo said. What? It's defective. No way, it looks healthy. Where is it defective? Gary and the others couldn't see any problem with this EV. It looked healthy. This EV's species strength is higher than its peers, but can't evolve. Primo said. Can't evolve? Really? Misty and Xiao didn't quite believe it. It was the first time they encountered such a thing. Even Sabrina was very curious about Eevee's condition. Eevee saw Primo pointed out its shortcomings and immediately yelled in dissatisfaction. Be quiet. If you can't evolve, then you can't evolve, but it doesn't mean you can't become stronger. Gary said to comfort him. Eevee finally calmed down after hearing Gary's words for him. Gary then asked, Mr. Primo, can you explain in detail why Eevee can't evolve? The genes in the bodies of the strengthened Eevees are relatively more stable. The evolution stone cannot stimulate Eevee's cells. Even the sun Pokémon and moon Pokémon that don't need evolution stones have not evolved yet. The specific situation is not clear, and it is still under research. Primo said, then can Eevee be sold? I want to breed it. Gary said, even if this Eevee can evolve, it has the potential of a quasi-legend. Even if it can evolve, as long as the level reaches the quasi-legend level, it can still defeat the champion-level Pokémon and is still worth breeding. I can't make the decision on this, Mr. Gary. You should ask the teacher yourself. Primo said, after all, Cinnabar Laboratory never sells defective Pokémon to the public. That would damage their reputation. Okay, let's go back. Gary and the others quickened their pace and returned to Eevee's laboratory. Blaine also finished testing Ash's Pikachu. You're back. Ash saw Gary and the others, and his face was full of happy. It can be seen that the test results of Pikachu must be very gratifying. Tell me, how are the test results of Pikachu? Gary asked directly. Very good, completely beyond the normal Pikachu species. And this Pikachu's capacitance is also very wide, and the amount of electricity stored in the body is almost comparable to Electabuzz. Without waiting for Ash to answer, Blaine answered for Ash directly. Yes, that's it. My Pikachu is really amazing. Ash said proudly. Ash, did you catch your Pikachu in the wild? Blaine asked. No, Pikachu is a Pokemon I received from Professor Oak, my first Pokemon. Gary said, received from Professor Oak. Has Professor Oak also started researching Pokemon genes? Blaine said, and then looked at Gary. This shouldn't be the case. This Pikachu was also caught in the forest near Pallet Town. There was nothing abnormal in the test at the time. It should be that Pikachu had some adventure on its own. Gary said, Chapter 115, Buying Eevee Adventure. Ash touched his chin, looked at the Pikachu beside him, and asked, Pikachu, did you encounter any adventure? Pikachu. Pikachu shook his head decisively. It originally lived in the forest. and after evolving into Pikachu, it was captured by Professor Oak and then became Ash's Pikachu. Ordinary Pikachu will never have such a capacity. Professor Oak should not be unable to detect it. Blaine shook his head. He didn't believe that Professor Oak would make a mistake. If there were errors in the performance data, Blaine would still believe it, but the capacity could not be deceived, and this test could tell the approximate amount of power. I guess it should be related to the lightning strike. Gary said, Thunder strike. Gary, do you know? Everyone was shocked and looked at Gary. I didn't know it originally, but I met an Electabuzz in Azure City. It was still an Elekid at the time, absorbing lightning strikes. It was too greedy, and one lightning strike was not enough. So it absorbed 3 at once, but its body couldn't bear it at all, and at the last moment it evolved into an Electabuzz and survived. After that, I captured that Electabuzz. After my test, the capacity of that Electabuzz was nearly half more than that of an ordinary Electabuzz. Gary personally tested the power of Electabuzz, and it definitely exceeded the average value standard of Electabuzz. In that case, Pikachu did suffer a bolt strike. Ash said, Really? It seems that when an electric Pokémon suffers a bolt strike with huge energy, its race and capacitance will be enhanced. Blaine thought, although this method is feasible, it is very dangerous. It will cause the Pokémon to fall into a suspended animation contest condition. If it is not treated in time, it is very likely to die. Gary reminded, Yes, Pikachu was seriously injured at that time. Ash said, It seems that there are risks, but it doesn't matter. We can test it slowly. Blaine didn't care about this. Any experiment is accompanied by risks, as long as the risks are reduced. Okay, you have all finished the tour, and you can start the gym battle. Blaine said, Ding, publish task. Get Cinnabar Gym badge/task reward. Intermediate rare Candy X10. Fire Blast permanent skill learning device. Top grade charcoal. Fire skill power increased by 50%. X1. The system's task was suddenly released. The task reward is the same as the reward for challenging other gyms. It seems that the reward for challenging any gym is low-level and intermediate rare candy, and there is no high-level rare candy. Professor Blaine, wait a minute. I have something I want to ask you. Gary said, Ask it. I'm very interested in this EV and am willing to pay for it. Is that okay? Blaine's face was calm. EV is a very popular Pokémon with multiple evolutions that can make up for the lack of a tribute Pokémon in the team. That won't work. These EVs are not perfect yet and cannot evolve normally. You can't evolve them even if you buy them. Blaine said, Mr. Primo has already told me that I don't care. I just want to breed it. Gary said. Blaine looked at Gary, who was serious. He was surprised that Gary would breed a defective Pokémon. Blaine pondered for a while and said, Okay, this EV can be given to you, but you need to record the entire process of EV's growth and give me the recorded data every month. No problem. Gary understood what Blaine meant. He wanted to see if handing EV to trainer could solve the problem of not being able to evolve. Pokédex. Ninetales of Fox Pokémon is a fire-type Pokémon, the evolution of Vulpix. What Blaine said is right. A Pokémon with gym potential can be auctioned for $1 million at an auction. And the 3 EVs here, the worst 2 have champion potential. Even if they can't evolve, their value is definitely more than $1 million. $1 million is very cheap. Great. Mr. Blaine, can you give me an EV too? Seeing Gary pick up an EV for free, Ash also wanted to get one for free. Gary looked at the terrain. He was ready to fight inside the volcano, but Blaine was a human for a while and chose to fight in a normal venue. What, $1 million? Ash was shocked. He has never bought Pokémon since he became a trainer. Yeah, I understand. Blaine didn't waste any words and threw the Pokeball. In the original plot, Blaine fought with Ash inside the volcano at first, and the second time was directly at the entrance of the volcano. LV51 Ultra Iron Tyrannosaurus 3/Quasi-Elite 7. Everyone came to the venue behind the laboratory. According to the rules of Cinnabar Gym, the game is 3 versus 3. Blaine said. A 2-meter-tall behemoth appeared on the field. Follow me. Gary was shocked. This first Pokémon of Blaine was too scary. It was level 42. It seemed to be a test for the challenger, but it was actually a geographical advantage. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that only fire and rock Pokémon could move in these two battlefields. Other Pokémon couldn't fight at all in such a venue. Although the EV in the laboratory cannot evolve, each one has very high potential. If they are well-bred, their strength can definitely exceed that of the Pokémon in the gym. 1 million is already very cheap. Blaine said. Blaine also has a Magmar. That Magmar should be stronger than Ninetales. Can Gary's Charizard really beat it? My first Pokémon is this go Ninetales. For a Fire-type Pokémon, Gary will bring out his Blastoise, right? Ash knew Gary had Blastoise, so he would definitely send Blastoise to the field. Blaine was also a little itchy. He hadn't fought in a gym battle for a few years, so he was naturally looking forward to today's battle. Then forget it. Ash is the king of free stuff. He can take things that don't cost money, but once he asks for money, you won't take them. That was my past. My present would not do such a thing. Ash retorted. Professor Blaine, we can fight now. Gary said. Ash also took out the Pokédex to look at the basic information of Ninetales. LV42 Ninetales 3/Quasi-Elite. Blaine knew the weakness of Fire-type Pokémon, so he chose this battlefield. So the challenge of Cinnabar Gym is so difficult. Great. Gary didn't make a move either. After all, Ash in the anime had never captured EV, and Ash already had Pikachu, so why would he need EV? Sure, as long as you pay 1 million, and then tell me the process of EV breeding. Blaine said. Gary looked at Ninetales and had already decided which Pokemon to use, and took out a Pokeball from his waist and threw it out. Of course, Gary is not like you, who would send a reverse attribute Pokemon to fight. Misty complained. Chapter 116. Versus Blaine, this is the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus, so domineering. Yesterday, at the Pokemon Center, Ash was very curious about what the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus looked like. Now that he finally saw the real thing, he was immediately conquered by the domineering appearance of the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Super Iron Tyrannosaurus, it seems that you are not an ordinary trainer and are qualified to challenge me. Blaine commented. Blaine also has a Rhydon and knows very well what kind of Pokemon Rhydon is. Since Gary has a Super Iron Tyrannosaurus, the strength of this Super Iron Tyrannosaurus must reach the gym level. After all, the Iron Rhino must be level 42 to evolve into Rhydon. Let me test your strength, Ninetales Flamethrower. Yuan Bo gave the order first. Woo! Ninetales opened his mouth and sprayed a flame at the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Stone Edge. The Iron Tyrannosaurus 120 raised his arms and pounded the ground. Bang! The ground shattered and sharp rocks broke out of the ground. Flamethrower could not melt the rocks that broke out of the ground and was pushed back step by the rocks. Ninetales immediately stopped the flame spray and dodged to the side, but under the control of the Iron Tyrannosaurus, sharp rocks continued to emerge from the ground and chase Ninetales. In Professor Oak's laboratory, Gary told the Iron Tyrannosaurus to practice Stone Edge well. Now it can construct rock very skillfully and even track. If Ninetales wants to break the move, he can only use a more powerful move to detonate the elemental energy underground to interrupt this skill. Don't hide. Use the flame vortex on the Iron Tyrannosaurus. Blaine ordered. Ninetales, who was running away, did not run away. He spit up a vortex of flames at the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. The flames seemed to have consciousness and surrounded the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Stone Edge also hit Ninetales and knocked it away. Looking at the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus surrounded by the vortex of flames, Gary did not care and directly ordered, Earthquake, roar! The Super Iron Tyrannosaurus raised its foot and stomped on the ground. The shock waves spread out quickly. Ninetales did not dare to take the earthquake head-on. The Stone Edge just now made it very uncomfortable. He immediately splashed high. However, at this moment, the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus suddenly charged forward and the drill on its head began to rotate. A golden energy lingered around its body, forming a cyclone. This was a drill run skill. Earthquake was just to force Ninetales to jump so that he could not move around. Use Flamethrower to stop the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Blaine ordered immediately. Ninetales in the air, immediately Flamethrower, but the flames were weak and could not stop the super iron Tyrannosaurus at all. Bang! Woo! With a wail, Ninetales was knocked out of the field by the super iron Tyrannosaurus, fell to the ground, and his eyes swirled. Awesome. Ash was very shocked to see Ninetales defeated by the super iron Tyrannosaurus, because Ash rarely used such a regular way to win in his usual battles. Facing strong enemies, he basically won by surprise. Xiao and Misty also had sweat on their foreheads. They were not as ignorant as Ash. One battle was enough to show Gary's trainer level, which was obviously crushing Ash. The two sides were not on the same level at all. Especially Ash kept shouting that he wanted to surpass Gary, which was a bit difficult. Very powerful drill run, but the battle is not over yet. My second player is Go Rapid Ash. Blaine sent out the second Pokémon. Great. You. A neighing sounded, and a pale yellow fur horse was released. LV-45 Rapidash/Elite. It's over, flamethrower. Blaine ordered. Rapidash fired Solar Beam, and a beam of incandescent light shot out of his mouth. Rapidash used a double kick to push the super iron Tyrannosaurus back several meters. Gary was wondering what was going on, but when he looked up, he felt the same situation as the super iron Tyrannosaurus, and the opponent was assist dazzling eyes to cover the super iron Tyrannosaurus's vision. Compared to the gyms they had challenged before, it was hard to see Pokémon with quasi-elite potential, but the Pokémon Blaine had seemed to be at least quasi-elite, worthy of being a researcher specializing in strengthening Pokémon. Drill run, Gary said. When the super iron Tyrannosaurus looked up, he saw that the sunlight in the sky became very bright, and it stung his eyes. Solar Beam. Blaine immediately issued a fatal command. As a rock-type trainer, Xiao knew the weaknesses of the super iron Tyrannosaurus very well. It had low special defense and was 4 times weak to grass. It was already very strong that it didn't get killed instantly. Bang! Bang! It's really difficult. Blaine didn't expect the super iron Tyrannosaurus to dig. It was obviously dying, so why not just lie down obediently? The flame on Rapidash's back burned fiercely, and the flame of the end gushed out, turning into a fire snake and rushing towards the super iron Tyrannosaurus. Bang! The ground shattered, but the ground that shattered was not under Rapidash's feet, but behind him. The super iron Tyrannosaurus drilled out from the ground and rushed towards Rapidash. Because of the influence of the flame vortex, Gary was unable to take back the super iron Tyrannosaurus and gave the command first. Earthquake. Gary looked serious. He also knew that the super iron Tyrannosaurus was dying, but it couldn't be taken back after being hit by the flame vortex, so he could only fight to the death. Rapidash immediately became alert. Horn Drill is a one-hit kill skill, so it can't be taken casually. Solar Beam hit, and the effect was outstanding. Really high potential. Rapidash jumped up and jumped high. The next moment, the super iron Tyrannosaurus felt a shadow covering him and immediately opened his eyes and saw a pair of horse hooves attacking his face. The super iron Tyrannosaurus has both rock and ground attributes, and its grass-type skills are very restraining to the super iron Tyrannosaurus. It was hit by a solar beam and didn't fall down. This super iron Tyrannosaurus is already very strong. Xiao said, "It's solar beam. The super iron Tyrannosaurus is injured," Ash said in surprise, not expecting Blaine's Rapidash to be so powerful. Blaine was also a little nervous. If he was hit by the horn drill, he would definitely be killed instantly. Gary's super iron Tyrannosaurus could withstand Rapidash's solar attack, so his level must be higher than Rapidash's. Flame Horse. Pay attention to the movement underground. Once the super iron Tyrannosaurus comes out, use Flamethrower to counterattack. Blaine said, "Jump up and use Sunny Day." Blaine ordered. Bang! Super iron Tyrannosaurus. Use Horn Drill to attack. Gary also tried his best, intending to kill Rapidash in one shot. The super iron Tyrannosaurus stomped the ground to trigger Earthquake. Rapidash felt the movement behind him and immediately turned around. The flames in his body roared out and swallowed the super iron Tyrannosaurus. Oh, it didn't fall down. Blaine was also quite surprised to see that the super iron Tyrannosaurus had not fallen down, But the contest condition of the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus was no longer good, and it could not fight anymore. Dig, boom, roar. The Super Iron Tyrannosaurus quickly rotated its body and burrowed into the ground to avoid the flames. Chapter 117, Blastisev's Arcanine Roar. However, the flames soon engulfed the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus, and the flames turned into a vortex and spread out. A red monster broke through the flames. Because of the burning of the flames, the armor of the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus was faintly red, like a giant beast in the lava, and the violent momentum spread out. The Super Iron Tyrannosaurus rushed to Rapidash and knocked him out with one horn. Bang! Rapidash fell to the ground and lost consciousness. Roar! The Super Iron Tyrannosaurus roared, and then fell down. The Super Iron Tyrannosaurus gave Rapidash a fatal horn drill with its own will, but it also fell down due to exhaustion. Both sides lost their ability to fight at the same time. What an amazing perseverance. Blaine couldn't help but sigh. To make Pokémon have such a will, it is not enough for the Pokémon itself to be aggressive. The trainer must also have the belief that he must win, so that he can gradually assimilate his Pokémon in daily training. Thank you for your hard work. Your performance is great. Gary took back the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus and praised it softly. The situation is now 2-1. Blaine has only one Pokémon left, and Gary still has 2 Pokémon available. Gary, I agree with your strength as a trainer. Next, I will use my main Pokémon, which is different from Mikey's Pokémon just now. Blaine said. Gary was stunned. Since it is a main Pokémon, its strength must be above the gym level. My third player is this. Go ahead, Arcanine. Blaine threw the Pokeball. Great. A huge Arcanine appeared. Pokédex. Arcanine, legendary Pokémon. The evolution of Growlithe has a majestic mane and is evolved from Growlithe using the Fire Stone. Ash habitually took out the Pokédex to check Arcanine's data. Arcanine is so handsome. Ash had only seen Arcanine on TV before, but this was the first time he had seen the real thing. LV55 Arcanine 3/Elite. Looking at Arcanine's level, it has reached the quasi-elite level. If Ash's current Pokémon were to face it, it would be killed instantly. Blaine's strength is indeed not bad, and this Arcanine is probably not the strongest Pokémon in Blaine's hand. This Blaine is still a person, and Gary can still deal with a quasi-elite Pokémon. In that case, I will also send out my Earl Dervish Pokémon. Gary took out a red and white ball from his waist and threw it. Go! My trump card. Great! The Pokeball opened, and a ball of white light shot into the field. When the white light dissipated, a giant tortoise walking on 2 legs appeared. LV52 Blastoise 3/Quasi-Legendary. It turned out to be Blastoise. Blaine was a little surprised to see Blastoise. He thought Gary didn't prepare any water-type Pokémon. It turned out that the water-type Pokémon he prepared was Gary's trump card, so he didn't use it at the beginning. Solar Technique. Hydro Pump. Blaine and Gary issued commands at the same time. Ouch! Kami. Arcanine spit up flames. Blastoise fired bubbles. The 2 skills collided, evaporating a large amount of water vapor, surprisingly evenly matched. Arcanine is so strong. The flames were not extinguished by Hydro Pump. Xiao Gang said in surprise. Misty was also shocked. Although she is not a water master yet, she has seen powerful water Pokémon. She is sure that Gary's Blastoise is strong enough. She didn't expect that it couldn't suppress Blaine's Arcanine. Gary was also surprised. The level difference between the 2 sides was not big. Blastoise also carried the top-grade Mystic Water. It was impossible to tie. Is the weather so influential? Gary thought that the weather had little influence, but it seems that he was wrong. Blastoise, use Rain Dance. Gary said, don't give Blastoise a chance. Use Thunderfang. Blaine will not let Blastoise perform Rain Dance smoothly. Kami. Blastoise performed Rain Dance on the spot, and when Arcanine approached, he immediately retreated into his shell. Arcanine did not care, and bit the shell with his lightning-covered teeth. The current flowed along the soft surface of the shell and directly into the inside, thereby hurting Blastoise. Although it caused effective damage, it was only a Thunderfang, and the impact was not great. However, Arcanine dared to approach Blastoise. He was really not afraid of death. Just perform Hydro Pump like this, Gary ordered. Blastoise's barrel sprayed Hydro Pump. Arcanine jumped to avoid Hydro Pump. Although Arcanine was big, he was as agile as a cat. Normal usually used agile movements to play tricks on the enemy, but Arcanine underestimated Blastoise. Blastoise's barrel kept spraying Hydro Pump, and the turtle's shell rapid spin directly formed a rotating Hydro Pump, which whipped Arcanine like a water whip. Arcanine was blown away by the water bubble. This was a Hydro Pump in the rain, and one hit was enough to cause fatal damage. Blaine didn't expect Gary to have this trick up his sleeve. Although the rotating Hydro Pump had a short range, it was 360 degrees within a certain range, and there was no dead-angle attack. Arcanine couldn't avoid it no matter how agile he was. Water Pulse continuous shooting. Gary beat the drowned dog and would not give Arcanine a chance to breathe. Agility Dodge. The fire in Arcanine's body turned into power, and he ran at high speed on the field. Blastoise's cannon kept firing water balls to chase, not giving Arcanine a chance to counterattack. Use Fire Blast. Blaine felt that hiding like this was not a solution and immediately issued a counterattack order. Arcanine immediately turned around and spit up Fire Blast. Boom! Fire Blast was hit by Water Pulse and exploded directly, and a cloud of water vapor rose to cover the center of the field. The Water 480 Arrow Turtle, which had lost its sight, also stopped attacking. A trick, Blastoise condensed Water Pulse to attack ground. Gary ordered. Kami. Blastoise didn't need the barrel, but condensed a huge water ball between his palms and smashed it towards the inside under him. The water ball immediately turned into waves and spread forward. Arcanine, who wanted a sneak attack, was hit by the water wave, and the water vapor on the field was also dispersed by the water wave. Arcanine still didn't fall, but after being attacked by 2 water skills in a row, his physical strength was already close to the limit, and the result of this gym battle was no longer suspenseful. Even if Arcanine could decide to turn the tables and defeat Blastoise, he couldn't defeat Gary's next Pokémon. Arcanine, use Reversal. Yuanbo also fought desperately. Arcanine gathered all his strength and rushed towards Blastoise. Gary didn't rush to issue orders. He knew that this was the last attack between Blaine and Arcanine, and he had a lot of room for operation. He could choose to respect rival and face off head-on. But Gary didn't intend to do so because it would cause unnecessary damage to the Pokémon. Arcanine saw Blastoise was slow to move, and as he was about to get close to Blastoise, Gary suddenly ordered, Kami. Blastoise used his hands to block Arcanine's desperate attack. Chapter 118. Ash vs. Blaine what? Protect. Blaine was surprised. He didn't expect Gary's Blastoise to know the Protect skill. He had asked Blastoise to withstand Arcanine Thunderfang before, but he had never used Protect. Gary is really good at hiding his weakness. He deliberately didn't use Protect, which made rival careless. The Protect skill is very useful in reality. After blocking an attack, you can counterattack. However, Protect can only be used twice. Even if it is used later, it will most likely be broken by rival's attack. Flash Cannon. Gary gave a ruthless command. The cannon on Blastoise's back fired 2 silver beams, knocking Arcanine more than 10 meters away. He fell to the ground outside the field, and his eyes swirled. At this point, the battle with Blaine ended, and Gary won the gym battle. What a wonderful battle. Gary's Blastoise is so strong. Xiao and Misty were attracted by this battle throughout the whole process. Blaine was very strong, but Gary was even stronger. Okay, it's my turn next. Ash watched the battle and became excited and began to look forward to the battle with Blaine. Xiao Misty. Seeing Ash eager to try, Xiao and Misty didn't know what to say. Before seeing the battle between Gary and Blaine, Xiao and Misty thought that Ash could still get the badge. After watching it, they felt that Ash might not have a chance. Thinking carefully, the only Pokémon Ash could show off might be Pikachu and Charizard. Ash's 2 strongest Pokémon are Pikachu and Charizard, but Charizard currently does not obey Ash's instructions and sometimes even does not want to fight. Pikachu is the only one who can fight, and it is very difficult for Pikachu to fight 3 alone. The most important thing is that Ash seems to have no idea at all. He didn't feel the gap when watching the battle between Gary and Blaine, and he was still very motivated. Don't you have any idea in your mind, Ash? Blaine looked at Ash and thought to himself, both Ash and Gary are from Pallet Town. They seem to be quite strong. I will take them seriously later. Blaine's strength is naturally far more than that. He has Pokemon that are stronger than the gym level. If he really wants to take them out, Gary is no match. It's a great game. The volcano badge is yours. Blaine handed the volcano badge to Gary. Thank you. Ding. Mission completed. Rewards have been sent to the space backpack. After getting the volcano badge, the system also prompted that the mission was completed. Mr. Blaine, can I start? Seeing that Gary got the badge, Ash also rushed over and asked when he could start. Wait a minute. I will treat the Pokemon first and bring a few more Pokemon. Blaine said, okay, then go and come back quickly. Ash couldn't wait any longer. Blaine and Gary entered the laboratory and handed the defeated Pokemon to Primo for treatment. Afterwards, Blaine took a few Pokeballs and went to the backfield. It's still a 3 versus 3 game. My number 1 player is this. Blaine threw the Pokeball. Great. LV50 Fire Pokemon 3/Elite. A fire Pokemon with fiery red hair appeared. Level 50 is already a quasi-elite level, and it is also the ceiling level of the gym. Can Ash win? Gary saw the Pokemon sent by Blaine and felt that Ash's winning rate was too low. Pikachu is currently only level 39, not even level 40. Gary's other Pokemon are naturally not too high. Most of them should be below level 40, which is a complete level suppression. Pokédex, Fire Pokemon, Fire-type Pokemon, is the evolution of EV. Part of the air inhaled will be pushed into the fire bladder in the body to form flames. Ash took the Pokédex to check the information of the fire Pokemon and had already determined which Pokemon to use to deal with it. Okay, since it's a fire-type Pokemon, then use a water-type Pokemon. Go, Squirtle. Ash threw the Pokeball. Great. Carrot B, HG Carrot Plus, LV36, Squirtle 3/Elite Gary. Sure enough, just as Gary guessed, Ash's other Pokemon levels will not exceed Pikachu's. How can a level 36 fight a level 50? Blaine was also a little confused when he saw this scene. He thought that Ash's strength was similar to Gary's, but he actually sent out a Squirtle that had not evolved to its final form. What the hell? Blaine didn't know what to say. After all, it was a gym battle and he had to fight on. Fire Pokemon use Flamethrower. Blaine gave the order. Squirtle use Water Gun. Ash also immediately counterattacked. The fire Pokemon took a deep breath and sprayed red flames to attack. Squirtle also immediately used Water Gun to counterattack. Zzzz. The Water Gun was instantly evaporated when it came into contact with the fire Pokemon's flames. The flames also swallowed Squirtle. When the flames dissipated, Squirtle's moist shell became dry and black. Squirtle also poked his head out, his eyes spinning in circles. What? Squirtle didn't even resist Flamethrower. Misty said in shock. It seems that the level of that fire Pokemon is very high. Gone judged. Gary was also troubled. Ash's level was too poor, not rival at all. Blaine was also quite surprised. He didn't expect Ash's Pokemon to be so weak. He immediately boasted, "The victory or defeat cannot be determined by attributes alone. Your Squirtle is far inferior to Gary's Blastoise." Ash was quite dissatisfied with being compared with Gary by Blaine. He retorted, "Then use fire to fight fire." Then Ash took back Squirtle, took out the Pokeball, and prayed to the Pokeball, "Please, you have to show your fighting spirit. Charizard, it's you." Ash threw the Pokeball in his hand. Great. A stunted Charizard appeared. LV45 Charizard 3/Champion. Because of the early evolution, Ash's Charizard has not accumulated enough energy in his body, so he is a little smaller than the normal Charizard, but this Charizard is still powerful. It's just that using fire to attack fire is still useful for other fire Pokemon, but facing the fire Pokemon with Flash Fire ability, Charizard is too passive. Ash, you idiot, the fire Pokemon has Flash Fire ability. Why are you using Charizard? Gary couldn't help but complain. What's wrong with Flash Fire ability? Ash asked in confusion. Everyone was stunned. Pokémon with Flash Fire ability are immune to fire skill damage, and if they are hit by fire, they will increase their own attack. Blaine replied, "What? Is there such a thing?" It was the first time Ash encountered a Pokémon with Flash Fire ability, and he had never suffered any loss in this regard. It doesn't matter, I just don't use fire skills. Ash pumped himself up. Seeing Ash like this, Gary was also convinced. Chapter 119, Disobedient Charizard Come Back, Fire Pokémon. Just as Ash was about to launch an attack, Blaine took back the fire Pokémon. He had already seen Ash's strength. If he fought him as Gary, this battle would be meaningless. Huh? Why did you take it back? Ash asked in confusion. Nothing. I just want to exercise each of my Pokémon. My second player is it. Rhydon. Blaine threw the Pokeball. Great. LV42 Rhydon 3/Quasi-Elite. Blaine replaced it with a lower level Rhydon, which was just the right level. However, Charizard saw Rhydon and had no interest in it at all, and looked sleepy. Blaine was also confused and couldn't understand what Charizard was doing. Although it was obvious that Charizard was sleepy, Blaine didn't want to believe it, but thought that Ash had some tactics. But the next second, "Please, Charizard, fight. I'm like this, please." Ash pleaded pitifully. Charizard was indifferent and scratched himself without any fighting. "It seems that your level as a trainer is not good enough." Blaine said, "Hey, Charizard, remember me 313? At this moment, Gary suddenly spoke. Roar. Charizard didn't pay much attention just now, but after hearing Gary's voice continuously, he immediately looked at Gary. "Remember the battle with my Blastoise? You lost to me." Gary reminded. Roar. Charizard was immediately angry. Of course, it remembered that Blastoise lost to Gary. Now that it has evolved into Charizard, it must defeat Gary's Blastoise and avenge its previous shame. "Gary, what are you going to do? Why do you want to provoke Charizard?" Ash didn't know what Gary was going to do and couldn't react for a while. "If you want to fight my Blastoise, defeat the trainer in front of you, and let me see if you are qualified now." Gary said. Roar. Charizard looked at Rhydon, his eyes flashing with fighting spirit, changing from the tired contest condition before. "Great. Charizard, you are finally willing to fight," Ash said in surprise. "Ash, Charizard is fighting only because he wants to fight Blastoise," Misty said speechlessly. "What is this? Pokémon?" Ash saw the platypus for the first time and took out the Pokédex to face the platypus. Pokédex, platypus, eruption Pokémon, has a hot body and its mouth will spit up flames. I heard it was found near the mouth of the volcano. Then let the battle continue. Rhydon attacked with Horn Drill. Blaine attacked, and Rhydon ran towards Charizard. However, Ash is a special case. Normally, if a gym can't beat it, it will breed a Pokémon that restrains the gym's attributes. However, in the gym that Ash can't beat, something will happen inexplicably, and Ash happens to help. The gym owner sees Ash's help and gives him the badge. "Great, seismic toss," Ash shouted loudly. And in order to show his strength, Ash would release Charizard to fight any rival, which made Charizard not in the mood to fight at all. Unless rival showed enough strength, Charizard would look down on it, and even if he was willing to fight, he would not obey Ash's instructions. "Your Charizard breeder is pretty good, but it doesn't follow your instructions," Blaine commented. "Great. In this way, Ash's 8 badges are very watery, but this is also normal. Most of the players in the Indigo Plateau Conference held by Kanto Alliance are not very strong. This situation can only be encountered in the novice period. Normal to the later stage, trainer knows that he can't just breed one Pokémon, but must improve the strength of the entire team. What a mess. Rhydon's physical attack ability is not weak, much stronger than Charizard. Although Ash's Charizard is gifted, it will sooner or later get into trouble if he does it recklessly. Gary watched silently. He still knew what kind of personality Ash's Charizard had. After evolving, Charizard was unwilling to fight with weak Pokémon, and Song wanted to compete with strong rivals. In the animation, Blaine saw that Ash had helped him, so the level of the Pokémon he sent out was not high, which was almost a letdown. Gary felt that it would not be difficult for him to win the Indigo Plateau Conference. There should be no more than 4 people who can really threaten him. What a great force. Blaine was also confused. Rhydon weighs more than 200 pounds, and it was too cruel for Charizard to catch him and fly him up to the sky. LV45 Magmar 3/Elite in terms of breeding Pokemon. It also focuses on breeding Pikachu and Charizard, and the rest of the Pokemon are the breeder is not very good. The fire dragon flew to a height of dozens of meters, then fell towards the ground. When it was about to approach the ground, it threw Rhydon onto the ground. Blaine finally understood that the Pokemon in front of Ash were of different strengths. Some were strong, and some are weak. Gary always thought that Blaine's Platypus was very high, but now he understands. Blaine also saw Ash's difficulty, and then sent out the third Pokemon. Although it is true, the current situation is good. Otherwise, Ash will have one less Pokemon to fight. Xiao said, only level 45. After blocking Rhydon, Charizard quickly went behind Rhydon, hooked his arms around Rhydon's armpits, and swung dual wing beat vigorously, taking Rhydon to soaring in the sky, spinning his body and ascending to the sky. This is indeed a problem. I will correct it later. Mr. Blaine, you should quickly put down a Pokemon. Ash urged. He was worried that Charizard would not obey again. That would be a headache. A deep pit was smashed into the ground, and Rhydon lost consciousness and was killed instantly. My third player is this. Come on, Platypus. Blaine threw the Pokeball. Magmar was covered with flame patterns, and there were 2 tumor-like objects protruding on his forehead, and it was emitting flames. Charizard, use Flamethrower, Ash ordered. However, Charizard did not follow Ash's instructions, but stood still, waiting for Rhydon to come over, and held Rhydon's head with both hands, using superpower to block Rhydon's attack. Ash has collected 6 badges so far, 4 of which were donated by others, and only 2 badges were obtained by defeating the gym owner, which is quite watery. Rhydon, a ground Pokemon, was suddenly taken to the sky and felt dizzy and had no way to fight back. Roar. 120. Charizard defeated. Platypus, Fire Blast. Blaine ordered. Magmar spit up and spit out a big flame. Charizard, get out of the way. Ash shouted. Charizard naturally would not listen to Ash's command and rushed forward, catching the Fire Blast with both claws and threw it out. After flying in the air for a distance, the Fire Blast became smaller and smaller and gradually dissipated. Now Skull Bash. Yuan Bo took the opportunity to launch an attack. Magmar quickly ran toward Charizard, jumped up, and knocked Charizard out with his head. Charizard vibrated dual wing beat and flew up, soaring in the sky, and opened his mouth to swallow Magmar with a flame. However, the damage caused by the flame to the Platypus was minimal and had no effect at all. Although Ash's Charizard had a relatively high combat IQ, it was not very high. When fighting an enemy with the same attribute, he naturally could not use skills of the same attribute to attack because the damage caused was too low and an attack opportunity was wasted. Roar! Charizard also imitated the Platypus and rushed towards it quickly, grabbing with 2 sharp claws, but both claws were caught by Magmar's hands. The 2 song Pokemon immediately began to compete with each other in arms. However, Magmar was cunning and suddenly squatted down, suddenly releasing the force, causing Charizard's body to stagger forward. The Platypus took the opportunity to go behind Charizard, hooked his arms around Charizard's armpits, and locked him directly. Seeing this scene, Gary felt that the scene at the moment was very familiar. What? Ash was shocked. He didn't expect Blaine's Magmar to be able to lock his Charizard like this. For a moment, he didn't know what to do to solve the situation in front of him. Very good. Lock Charizard like this, and use Oil Mist to poison Charizard. Blaine ordered. Magmar sprayed purple poison, and immediately an unpleasant smell spread, and inhaling it would make you feel dizzy. Charizard, take Magmar to the sky. Ash was quick-witted and shouted. Charizard was in danger and followed Ash's command this time. He launched Dual Wing Beat and rushed out of Smog. Under the influence of wind resistance, Magmar spit up Smog, did not have time to gather, and was blown away by the strong wind. Magmar, use Fire Punch. Blaine shouted loudly. The Platypus grabbed Charizard's shoulder with one hand and used Fire Punch to attack Charizard's back with the other hand. Although the fire could not hurt Charizard, the fist was still powerful. It hurt Charizard's back. Charizard used Air Submission to turn the Duck Bolt fire. At the command, Charizard immediately began to rotate his body. In order to avoid being thrown out by centrifugal force, the platypus could only hold Charizard's shoulders tightly with both hands. But even so, the constant rotation in the air made the platypus feel a spinning world, and his head began to dizzy. Charizard also felt that Magmar's hand on his shoulder was a little loose, so he grabbed the hand of the platypus and pulled it in front of him, then rushed to the ground quickly. When he was close to the ground, Seismic Toss threw the platypus towards the ground. Bang! The ground collapsed again, leaving a deep pit, and the platypus fell instantly. Like Rhydon, Charizard used Seismic Toss again to give a fatal blow. Gary also had to admire such tactics. Using Ground Roll in the air can not only be immune to Submission's counterattack, but also stun Pokémon that are not used to moving in the air. And finally, Seismic Toss is a fatal blow. This move is too fierce. For those Pokémon that are not used to air combat, this set of manipulation is a bit invincible. In the original plot, Gary's Blastoise was also defeated by this hand in the Silver Conference game. Fire Pokémon, leave it to you. Blaine continued to send out fire Pokémon to fight. Gary was confused. Even if the Alliance did not strictly manage the gym, the rules of the gym battle were still set. The gym owner did not have the authority to replace Pokémon. If a Pokémon was replaced, it would mean that the Pokémon lost its combat ability. Great! Chee! The fire Pokémon sent out another fire Pokémon. Charizard, do you want to come back and rest? Ash asked hurriedly. Charizard had fought 2 games in a row and had lost a lot of energy. Xiao Chui thought this was to let Charizard rest first. Roar! Charizard ignored Ash and instead spit up a flame at the fire Pokémon. Charizard, stop it! The fire Pokémon has the Flash Fire ability. Ash shouted hurriedly. Zero! Asked for Flower Zero. But it was too late. The flame hit the fire Pokémon, but it absorbed the flame into its physical strength in an instant, and a red breath burst out from the fire Pokémon. Roar! Charizard was also confused. It had never taken Gary's words to heart before. Seeing that the fire Pokémon was so short, it thought it could be easily defeated. Very good. Use Flamethrower, Blaine ordered. The fire Pokémon spewed out terrifying flames. The range of the flame attack was extremely large. It was completely a sea of fire that spit up and directly engulfed Charizard. Fortunately, Charizard was a fire Pokémon and did not suffer much damage, but the fire Pokémon's attack did not end. A quick attack hit Charizard's belly and knocked out several support. Roar! Charizard cried out in pain. He never thought that the short fire Pokémon would be so powerful. After the Flash Fire ability was triggered, the fire Pokemon's dual attack can be increased by at least 1.5 times, especially fire Pokemon, whose physical attack is very high. Ash didn't know what to do, whether it was a long-range skill duel or a close combat. It was not a match for fire Pokemon, and he was in a dilemma. It's time to end the battle. Inken Explosion. Shinbo ordered. The fire Pokemon took a deep breath, jumped up, and sprayed the hot flames at Charizard below. The flames turned into a large character, which was almost half the size of the field, leaving no chance for Charizard to dodge. Charizard didn't dodge either, and used both hands to resist. Boom! Fire Blast exploded after landing, and a cloud of black smoke rose. When the black smoke disappeared, Charizard had fallen down. You are really stubborn. Gary felt good when he saw Charizard defeated. It seemed that after evolving from Charmeleon to Charizard, Charizard never lost a battle until it was defeated by a Poliwrath, and then began to obey Ash's orders after Ash's careful care. So letting Charizard experience more defeats is a good thing, which can help it recognize its own strength more quickly. Charizard come back. Ash was also surprised at how powerful the fire Pokemon was. He didn't expect that after triggering the Flash Fire ability, it would be so terrifying. Even if Charizard was fully contest conditioned, it was not rival for it all. 121, Ash defeated. Ash also saw that the fire Pokemon was terrifyingly powerful. The other Pokemon in his hand were not rival at all. Among the remaining Pokémon, there was only Pikachu. Pikachu. Pikachu took the initiative to walk away from Ash and into the field. Pikachu, are you willing to fight? Ash was very surprised. Normally, Pikachu would retreat when encountering such a powerful rival. Pikachu. Pikachu nodded. Although it sometimes avoided fighting, it was still willing to help Ash to fulfill his dream, especially in this battle. How could it be so serious? Okay, then Pikachu, this battle will be handed over to you in the end, Ash said. Seeing Pikachu on the field, Xiao and the others were also very nervous. After all, Blaine's fire Pokémon was very strong. If Charizard did not trigger the ability of the fire Pokémon, Pikachu would still have a chance of winning, but without 320, Pikachu's chance of winning was not very big. Gary, do you think Pikachu can win? Misty asked. I don't know, it depends on the situation. Gary shook his head. It's unclear whether Pikachu can win, but Gary can be sure that Pikachu has strong electricity. He noticed this when he fought with Ash. Let me see how strong your Pikachu is. Blaine had tested Pikachu before and was also curious about the strength of this Pikachu. Fire Pokémon use Flamethrower. Fire Pokémon spit up merciless flames. A wave of flames and heat swept towards Pikachu, leaving no room for escape. If Pikachu wants to hide, it can only dig or fly into the sky. Pikachu, Thunderbolt, Ash ordered. Pikachu. Pikachu released Golden Lightning. Lightning exploded, flashing thunder shock in the flames, instantly detonating it. The explosion produced a strong impact, spreading outward, almost blowing away both the fire Pokémon and Pikachu. Equally matched, Misty was surprised. She thought that the skill match of Pikachu would not be a fire Pokémon rival. It seems that Pikachu is still very powerful. But Gary was very confused, and at the same time, he was sure of one thing. That is, Pikachu is an actor. When fighting with Ash in the hot spring town, Pikachu's Thundershock was not that powerful, and it couldn't even defeat Gary's Primeape. How come it can tie with the fire Pokémon that triggers Flash Fire ability now? Especially since Pikachu is only level 39. Bieber's fire Pokémon is 11 levels lower, which has crossed the range of 10 levels. Pikachu is definitely an actor. Since it can be tied, use Fire Blast. Blaine ordered. Don't give the fire Pokémon a chance to use Fire Blast. Quick attack. Ash counterattacked. Swoosh. Pikachu drew out a stream of white light and rushed to the fire Pokémon that had just jumped, knocking it away and interrupting the release of Fire Blast. Bang! After the fire Pokémon landed, it spit up attacked Pikachu with large flames, but Pikachu relied on its short body to pass through the gap of Fire Blast and successfully avoided it. Good, that's it. Ash was very surprised. As long as Fire Blast didn't hit Pikachu, there would be no danger. In that case, let Pikachu be unable to dodge. Use Lava Plume. Blaine ordered. The fire Pokémon burst into flames all over its body. With the fire Pokémon as the center, the flames turned into heat waves and spread out in all directions, attacking the entire field, not giving Pikachu a chance to dodge. Pika. Pikachu used Thunderbolt to counterattack. Boom. The heat wave in Thundershock instantly exploded, and the huge shock wave sent Pikachu flying several meters away. The fire Pokémon was not seriously injured, but the hair on its body was a little messy. Pika. Pikachu was a little tired. He was hurt by the shock wave twice in a row, and he exhausted his discharge power, which consumed a lot of Pikachu. After all, the level gap was there. Ash felt that this was not a solution. If he continued to fight like this, he would not be able to cause effective damage to the fire Pokémon. So he changed his tactics and ordered, Pikachu, use Thunder. Pikachu. Pikachu released Thunder, and a lightning bolt as thick as a bucket was released from Pikachu's body. Thunder turned into a long snake worm and flew to soaring in the sky, leaving a golden arc on soaring in the sky and falling towards the fire Pokémon. The fire Pokémon didn't dodge and took Pikachu's Thunder. It was not a big deal because the fire Pokémon's special defense was relatively high and Pikachu's Thunder couldn't cause much damage. What? Pikachu. Ash and Pikachu were both very surprised that the fire Pokémon could take Thunder without changing its expression. It's our turn to attack. Flare Blitz. Blaine didn't hide his weakness and let the fire Pokemon use the strongest fire-type move. Blazing flames burst out from the fire Pokemon's body, and the flames lingered outside the fire Pokemon's body. Then, the fire Pokemon quickly rushed towards Pikachu. Pikachu, Thunder, stop it, Ash ordered. Pikachu saw that the fire Pokemon was releasing a big move, and normal Thunder would definitely not be able to stop it. It gathered a little electricity and released Thunder, but the fire Pokemon was already close, and Thunder hit the flame ball. Boom! There was an explosion. A cloud of black smoke suddenly rose up, covering the stadium, and the black smoke soon dissipated, revealing the figures of the fire Pokemon and Pikachu. Pikachu lay on the ground motionless, and the fire Pokemon maintained the posture of a winner. Pikachu, are you okay? Ash immediately rushed into the stadium, picked up Pikachu, and checked Pikachu's injuries. Pikachu slowly opened his eyes. It had tried its best just now, but it was still not a rival of the fire Pokemon. It's okay, we will win back. Ash comforted. The gym battle between Blaine and Ash ended. Everyone returned to the laboratory and used the healing equipment in the laboratory to restore all the defeated Pokemon. While the Pokemon was recovering, Ash was silent. Misty and Xiao 1.5 gang also saw Ash like this for the first time, but Ash didn't need their comfort. Ash was thinking about the next tactics. Although they lost the gym battle, the normal battle process was still thrilling, but this was not Ash's credit. If Gary hadn't provoked Charizard, Charizard would not be willing to fight, and this situation would not have happened. In the next battle, Gary was not there, and Ash didn't know whether Charizard was still willing to fight. Even if Charizard was willing to fight, Blaine already knew Charizard's fighting mode and would definitely be on guard. So Ash's second battle with Blaine will be much more difficult than the first time. At this time, Gary and Blaine also came to the treatment room, and there was an EV lying on Gary's shoulder. Chapter 122. EV can't evolve. Gary, have you bought EV? Ash asked curiously when he saw Gary and EV. Yes, I have bought it. Now, EV is my Pokemon. Gary touched EV's furry head. EV did not resist at all and let Gary touch his head with a look of enjoyment. He went out with Blaine just now, naturally for EV's matter. After paying $1 million, this EV belongs to Gary. In the future, he will contact Blaine every month to report EV's growth. Ash, have all your Pokemon been cured? Gary asked. No, they're still being cured, Ash said. Gary looked at the 3 Pokeballs placed in the treatment device and said, then you wait slowly. Sabrina and I will leave first. Let's go. Ash was shocked. Gary, don't you plan to stay and watch Ash challenge the gym for the second time? Misty asked in confusion. I originally wanted to see your strength, Ash, but after watching your battle with Blaine, I found that your trainer level is not high enough. The only Pokemon you can show off are Pikachu and Charizard. Charizard doesn't listen to you. You are far from being my rival. Gary said. Ash, who was originally quite dull, blushed in an instant. Although Ash has grown a lot, he still became restless in the face of Gary's ridicule. Gary, I admit that you are better than me now, but I will definitely get the Volcano badge and will definitely surpass you in the future. Ash said. Then you have to work hard. Sabrina, let's go. Seeing Ash regain his fighting spirit, Gary didn't say much and took Sabrina out of Cinnabar Laboratory. Watching Gary and Sabrina leave, Ash looked at Blaine again and asked, Mr. Blaine, can I fight you again? Blaine was also surprised. He didn't expect Ash to regain his confidence so quickly after losing once, and still wanted to challenge himself. Okay, then let's have the second match tomorrow afternoon. We'll have a one-on-one battle. Blaine said. One-on-one. Ash was a little confused. It wasn't 3-3 before. How come it suddenly became one-on-one? I already know your strength. Just like Gary said, the only Pokemon you can show off are Pikachu and Charizard. It's not fair for you to fight 3-on-3 with you. Blaine said. Ash! Exclamation point. Although he was a little shocked, Ash thought it was good. Otherwise, he really didn't know which Pokemon to use as the third Pokemon. Because you can't be sure of intimacy. If the relationship between Pokemon and trainer is good enough and the potential is met, it can definitely evolve. But if the relationship is not good, it will not evolve successfully anyway. Chi, Gary is very satisfied with this EV. Regardless of whether it can evolve successfully in the future, he will breed it well. After all, the potential of a quasi-legendary cannot be wasted. Potential, quasi-legendary EV nodded frantically. Chi, Gary and Sabrina were packing their bags and planned to take the afternoon cruise to leave Cinnabar Island and return to the mainland. Intimacy, 185, max value 255, but I only booked 2 days at the B&B. If we don't leave today, we won't have a place to stay. Gary said, "Okay, let's go." Sabrina didn't want to stay any longer, seeing that she had no place to stay. She wanted to soak in the hot springs for a few more days, but since there was no place to stay, there was no hot spring to soak in. So, the two packed their luggage, had lunch in the B&B, and took a boat back to the mainland in the afternoon. Harbor City. After arriving in Harbor City from Cinnabar Island, Gary and Sabrina stayed in Harbor City for a while. If you want to ask why, it was naturally because there was a gym in Harbor City. Gary planned to train here for 540 weeks, and after getting the gym badge here, he would go to Viridian City. During this period, Gary also took a good look at the EV he had just obtained. It was indeed as Blaine said, this EV could not evolve. No matter what evolution stone was used, it could not evolve. When the evolution stone touched EV, it would react, and the evolution light would flash on EV, but the light would last for a while and then dissipate. EV didn't carry Everstone with him, but it just couldn't evolve. Anyway, it couldn't evolve with the evolution stone. As for the Sun Cinnabar Laboratory, is not sure whether Pokemon and Moon Pokemon can evolve. After all, the evolution of intimacy has not been thoroughly studied. "Don't you want to enter the Pokeball?" Gary asked. After the performance training, EV came to Gary and yelled for energy blocks. Level 33, but in reality, this ability is very special. In addition to being able to predict whether a rival has a move that can restrain it, the Pokemon's own perception will also be improved. The response speed will be very fast. If possible, I want to stay for 3 more days. Sabrina said, "Why? Do you want to stay a few more days?" Gary asked. Inside the B&B, EV entered the Pokeball. Gary took out the Pokeball and wanted to take EV back. The ability of this EV with quasi-legendary potential is the hidden ability, Danger Prediction. This ability can predict whether a rival has a skill that can restrain it in the game. "Gary, don't we stay on Cinnabar Island for a few more days?" Sabrina asked. Attribute: normal. Although Gary is a rich second generation, there are too many people coming to Cinnabar Island. The hotels are full, and even the Pokemon Center can't accommodate them. Gary can't find a place to live now. Eevee nodded frequently, then hugged Gary's thigh, showing a smile that said, "Non-humans are the best." He. Seeing the Pokeball, Eevee immediately ran to the back of the backpack, looking reluctant. Skills: Tackle, Tail Whip, Sand Swipe, Help, Quick Attack, Swift, Bite, Imitate, Baton Pass. "Okay, then I won't put you in the Pokeball, but if you stay outside, you must stay by my side and don't attack humans randomly." Gary reminded. Ability: Danger Prediction can detect dangerous situations. Pokemon: EV3. Although it was a bit inconvenient to leave Pokemon outside, it was okay to leave Eevee outside when Ash's Pikachu was also left outside. Gary also took out 2 energy blocks for Eevee to eat and touched Eevee's hair, by the way. The hair was a little wet with sweat. Although Eevee had just been obtained, Eevee was also quite sensible and helped Gary pack his bags. If this Eevee can evolve, Gary naturally hopes that it can evolve into a moon Pokemon, so he still carries Everstone for this Eevee, just in case, and only takes it off at night. Chapter 123. Eevee's amazing skill pool. I don't know if you can teach skills. Let's give it a try. Gary looked at Eevee and planned to try to teach Eevee skills. Although Eevee can evolve into multiple forms, it can learn very few skills by itself, and its skill pool is not wide enough. But thinking of the specialness of this Eevee, Gary still wanted to give it a try. So, Gary tried to teach Mega Kick first. Ding! Teaching failed. Hearing the prompt sound of failed teaching, Gary didn't care about anything and tried to teach Water Stream Break. The failed prompt sound did not sound. Eevee was startled it felt that it suddenly awakened a skill. You awakened a new skill. Seeing the surprised Eevee, Gary asked immediately. Eevee nodded blankly, wondering how Gary knew it. This is my ability. I can teach Pokemon some skills. You come and show Water Stream Break. Gary said. Bui. Eevee immediately performed Water Rupture, and a layer of water wrapped around Eevee's furry tail. The water was compressed into a water blade, and as Eevee waved its tail, it was like holding a water knife and waving it freely. You actually mastered it. Gary was shocked. Logically, Eevee could not master Aqua Tail, but it really did. Thinking of this, Gary asked Eevee to interrupt the skill and pressed his palm on Eevee's head. Eevee's long ears drooped down. Gary immediately taught Eevee Thunderbolt. There was still no failure prompt during the teaching. Eevee, 242. Eevee was shocked. It was half believing just now, but suddenly it awakened another skill and began to believe that Gary was telling the truth. Then, Eevee really released Thunderbolt. Seeing Eevee release Thunderbolt, Gary was sure that this Eevee would definitely not normal. Although it cannot evolve, can master so many skills. Gary thought of a possibility and immediately taught Eevee the Sunlight, Fire Blast, and Dream Eater, and all of them were successful. At present, the 5 skills that Eevee has mastered all correspond to the attributes corresponding to Eevee's 9 evolutionary forms. Looking at any Pokemon so far, it is impossible to learn so many attribute skills. Except for Mew, the Pokemon with the widest skills can only learn 5 or 6 other attribute skills. Eevee, you just use Copycat, right? Gary said. Of course, the premise is that this Pokemon can master the learned skills. If it can't master it, even if it can use it with Copycat, it can't master it by itself. Eevee was proud. It was the smartest Eevee in the laboratory, so its learning ability must be strong. Alakazam. Oh. Gary planned to let Eevee learn Psychic from Alakazam first to see if Eevee could master it. I don't know how good your learning ability is. Gary had a headache. He found the strength of this Eevee, but it was difficult to teach skills. Alakazam was shocked. He didn't expect that there was a Pokemon that could use such a move. It was too invincible. Bye. Eevee tilted his head, not understanding what a technician Pokemon meant, but it sounded quite high-end. Alakazam was also dumbfounded. It thought it was the smartest Pokemon in the team. It didn't expect this Eevee to be so scary. It used Psychic after just watching it 3 times. Okay, then Alakazam, come here. Gary waved at Alakazam and briefly communicated with it. But this is already very good. After all, it was Eevee's first practice. Using such an effect right away, at least it can be confirmed that Eevee can learn Psychic. The next step is to see how long it takes Eevee to master it. Alakazam released Psychic 3 times and then asked Eevee to try. Are you going to be a technician Pokemon in the future? Gary said. Eevee knew that he couldn't use Copycat, so he tried to use Psychic himself. Soon, an invisible energy burst out from Eevee's body and impacted the field, but this power was not Psychic. It was not even as powerful as Confusion. This shows that this Eevee can only learn 9 skills of the evolved attribute, and cannot master other attribute skills that can only be learned in the evolved form. Eevee carefully observed Alakazam's every move. Although the two had different body structures, they learned the same aura. Copycat is a skill that can mimic other people's moves. Except for some specific moves, all other moves can be mimicked. Gary explained. Seeing that Gary had exposed it, Eevee also showed an embarrassed smile of being exposed. It just used Copycat. Copycat is good, but it is different from truly mastering this move. If Eevee uses Psychic after Copycat, it can't compete with you. In terms of skill form, it is not as good as a Pokemon that truly masters skills. Gary said. Hearing Gary say this, Alakazam was relieved. Otherwise, the skills that he had worked so hard to master and the opponent could use any skills with a Copycat, wouldn't it make his efforts look like a joke? Eevee said that he could try its learning ability. Could it be that this Eevee can master the skills that can only be mastered after the evolutionary form? Eevee can evolve into 9 forms. then this EV can learn the skills of 9 attributes, which is too powerful. Qi Ishian. Alakazam looked confused. It didn't know what copycat was. Alakazam also told EV how to use Psychic and performed it in front of EV. EV, don't use copycat, try to release Psychic yourself. You, King, have the copycat skill, so your learning ability should be outstanding, said Gary. EV's eyes radiated blue light, and the invisible and colorless telekinesis rushed towards the ground, stirring up the dust on the ground, and successfully used Psychic. The power was not as powerful as Alakazam's, but it was definitely a qualified Psychic. Really? Gary expressed doubt. Gary tried to teach the remaining skills to EV, but all the skills failed. Signal Beam could not be learned. In theory, Thunder Pokémon can learn Signal Beam, but this EV cannot. Pokémon with copycat skills are very strong in learning. After all, they can copy the opponent's moves and easily master the difficulty of a skill and can easily learn 10 skills. Gary only had so many skill learning devices, and the skills he could teach were very limited. EV could learn so many other attribute skills. It would be a pity if he didn't teach more skills. Chapter 124, Harbor Gym. A week later, Gary arrived at the entrance of the Harbor Gym. The Harbor Gym is a fighting gym, and the room type is similar to that of a martial arts gym. It is said that the Harbor Gym has a connection with the original Saffron Gym. Saffron Gym was the gym of the Karate King Wuda, but later it was taken over by Sabrina's father. It is said that the owner of the Harbor Gym is a fellow apprentice of Wuda. Ding! Task released. Get the Harbor Gym badge / reward. Primary Rare Candy X5, Intermediate Rare Candy X5, Dynamic Punch Permanent Skill Learning Device, Top Black Belt. Fighting skill power increased by 50%. X1, System Task Released. Judging from the tasks released by the system, the strength of the owner of the Harbor Gym is not very good, and is about the same as Ma Ji-Shi. Entering the gym, Gary saw a group of men in karate uniforms practicing karate in unison, with red heads tied around their waists, representing their current karate level. Are you here to learn karate? If you sign up now, our gym will reward you with a Tyrogue if you're good at learning. A man saw Gary coming in and thought that Gary was here to learn karate, and that this age was just right for learning. No, I'm here to challenge the gym. Gary said, is that so? Then come with me. Hearing that Gary was here to challenge the gym, the man immediately lost interest and took Gary into a room in the gym, which was a fighting field. A middle-aged man in a karate uniform stood inside, with his back to the crowd. You could see the black belt around his waist, which symbolized the highest level of karate. Master, someone is here to challenge the gym. The man shouted. The middle-aged man looked back, sized up Gary, and said, our gym is the fighting gym, but it's very strong, and it's not something a kid like you can challenge. I advise you to reconsider. Gary was speechless. He didn't expect that the system had issued a task, and he was really fooled by the other party. After all, people who practice martial arts have a strong aura, and a calm aura that is easy to confuse people. If you're not strong, there is no need to challenge. Gary said, if you have the courage, then introduce yourself first. My name is Wu Yi, and I am the owner of the Harbor Gym. The middle-aged man introduced himself. My name is Gary, from Palatown. After introducing his identity, Wu Yi asked his apprentice to temporarily serve as the referee. The rule of the gym battle is 2 versus 2. So let's start. Without any nonsense, say, Wu Yi introduced several Pokémon that can be used in gym battles and threw out 10 Pokeballs. Great. A humanoid Pokémon wearing boxing gloves appeared. LV30 Hitmonchan 3 Gym. The first Pokémon Wu Yi used was Hitmonchan, a classic fighting Pokémon. If it was a few months ago, it would have been a bit difficult for Gary. EV, this battle is up to you. Gary threw the Pokeball. Great. LV34 EV3 / Quasi-Legendary. Gary sent out an EV whose level was not too different. After all, the gym battle was to hone Pokemon, so it was natural to send the appropriate Pokemon. After a week of training in Harbor City, it was time to test EV's strength. Seeing EV, Wu Yi felt that the baby was indeed a baby. It was fine if it didn't evolve, but didn't he know that fighting-type Pokémon restrain normal-type Pokémon? Mach Punch. Hitmonchan used the priority skill and rushed towards EV. EV was not to be outdone and used Quick Attack, hitting Hitmonchan's fist with his head. As expected, EV was punched and flew into the sky, but Hitmonchan also staggered back 2 steps. Thunderbolt. EV in the air immediately released a Thunderbolt, hitting Hitmonchan, who was caught off guard. What? Thunderbolt? Wu Yi was dumbfounded. Although he had never bred EV, he had never seen EV use any attribute skills other than normal skills. It was too tricky. Hitmonchan used Dynamic Punch. Wu Yi also took it seriously and used a killer move. Hitmonchan slid nearly 2 meters away in an instant and was about to get close to EV. The water flow broke. Gary said, "Psychic." Gary ordered. EV used Psychic, and confusion burst out, freezing Hitmonlee in the air. Then an invisible force burst out and sent him flying. "Hitmonlee, you come." Wu Yi threw out the second Pokémon. "Jump up and use Fire Blast." Hitmonlee kicked out horizontally, and the spring leg was ejected 10 meters away, rushing towards EV quickly. However, EV was lucky because Thunderbolt hit Hitmonlee, preventing him from kicking out a second time. EV used Thunderbolt to attack the flying leg, and the current flowed along Hitmonlee's leg to Hitmonlee. At the same time, Hitmonlee's kick also hit EV. A layer of water flow lingered on EV's tail, turning into a water knife, waving its tail and slashing forward. Abby was also stunned. This was originally a bare-handed match, and the opponent suddenly took out a knife, which was not good for martial arts. Bui. Hitmonlee is also a very traditional fighting Pokémon. Like Hitmonchan, it evolves from Tyrogue. Boom! Fortunately, Hitmonchan's fist was hard enough, and he fought EV equally. After the 2 sides hit each other several times, they were bounced back by the force of the collision. After the smoke dissipated, Hitmonchan lay on the ground with a charred body, and white smoke was still coming out of his body. EV heard the sound of splash, took a deep breath, and spit up a large flame. The firelight instantly illuminated the entire room. Both sides were hurt at almost the same time. Hitmonlee used Double Kick. He launched an attack. What a powerful EV. The power of the moves is so strong. Wu Yi thought to himself, great. Hitmonlee launched into the air and kicked horizontally, stretching his leg to several meters long. To evolve into Hitmonchan, the defense value must be greater than the attack value. Because the venue is relatively small, Hitmonchan had no room to dodge. Fire Blast landed and exploded. Tyrogue is a very special Pokémon. It can take 3 forms: Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, and Hitmontop. Hitmonchan lost his ability to fight. EV1, Wu Yi's apprentice announced. To evolve into Hitmontop, the attack value must be equal to the defense value. Knowing that Double Kick is difficult to dodge, especially when it is used by Hitmonlee, Gary directly ordered Thunderbolt. Use Jump Kick. Whether it is Thunderbolt, Water Flow Burst, or Fire Blast, they are all powerful moves. The key is that there are a lot of skills with different attributes, which is very rare for other Pokémon. To evolve into Hitmonlee, the attack value must be greater than the defense value. Chapter 125, Technician EV Bang. Hitmonlee crashed into the wall outside the field. This Psychic caused considerable damage to it. What? You can also use Psychic-type moves. Wu Yi was stunned. It was not enough that he had so many skills before, but he could also restrain the Psychic-type skills of Fighting-type Pokémon. He was too comprehensive. What? Although Hitmonlee was hit by an extremely effective attack, he did not fall down, but stood up bravely. Today's Psychic is very good. Sell it. Gary ordered. In 7 days, Eevee has mastered the Psychic move. Its learning talent is quite terrifying. It mastered Psychic in 7 days. Although there's still some flaws and the power is still a little short, it has really mastered it. Eevee played Psychic again. Hitmonlee didn't notice the attack trajectory of Psychic at all. As soon as he entered the field, he was hit by the ability of None and flew out again. Bang! After being attacked by Psychic twice in a row, Hitmonlee couldn't bear it and never stood up again after falling down. Hitmonlee lost his ability to fight, EV1, and the winner of this gym battle is Challenger Gary. Wu Yi's apprentice announced, "I lost. Hitmonlee, come back." Wu Yi also admitted his defeat. He understood that Gary in front of him was not a normal trainer. It was not something a normal trainer could do to breed an EV so well. "Congratulations, this is our gym's badge, a reddish-brown badge." Wu Yi handed his own gym's badge to Gary, which was a fist-shaped badge with a reddish-brown color. "Thank you." Gary took the badge. Ding! Mission completed. Rewards have been sent to the space backpack. Although there are 5 low-level rare candies this time, the Dynamic Punch skill is still quite good. The Pokémon hit by the Dynamic Punch, Golden Pokémon hit by the Pokémon, is in a chaotic contest condition. And Gary has a lot of Pokémon that can learn Dynamic Punch, such as Blastoise, Alakazam, Super Iron Tyrannosaurus, Forsaken, Electabuzz, and even the uncaptured Bangira can learn it. Get the badge of the Harbor Gym. Gary went outside and found a random place, released Electabuzz, and taught Electabuzz the Dynamic Punch skill. Electabuzz was also quite surprised. It could feel that Dynamic Punch was a very powerful skill, and its trust in Gary increased a few points. This feeling of awakening a new skill without much effort in training, from the initial hesitation to now. Electabuzz has been completely corrupted. This feeling is wonderful. Next, it's time to go to Viridian City. Gary looked at soaring in the sky in the distance. Tokiwa City is a threshold for Gary. In the original plot, Gary also challenged the Tokiwa Gym and naturally defeated the Pokémon sent by Itaki very easily. But until Mutwo appeared, all of Gary's Pokémon were killed instantly. Even Gary and his girlfriends were attacked by Mutwo, which made them all fall into a coma. Fortunately, Itaki was still a human being at that time and did not snatch the Pokémon of the challenger. To be honest, Gary actually wanted to avoid this impossible battle, but now there is a system. Although he will definitely not be able to beat Mutwo, the system may issue some tasks. If it can be completed, you can get a reward for free. After all, the owner of the Tokiwa Gym is Itaki, and he will definitely not let the challenger get into trouble in his gym. Otherwise, the Pokémon Alliance will cause trouble for him. It is estimated that Itaki is now focusing all his energy on Mutwo. The power of Mutwo has made Itaki a little inflated, but he did not expect Mutwo to escape. "Sabrina, I'm back." Back at the Pokémon Center, Gary found Sabrina, who was playing with his son Pokémon. Sabrina didn't take Pokémon training seriously and basically kept Pokémon as pets. She was more casual about training and often asked Gary for advice on training. At first, Sabrina was quite serious about training Pokémon, but since she evolved EV into a son Pokémon, she didn't train Pokémon seriously and even didn't take care of the quasi-elite Slowpoke. Gary was also curious about Slowpoke because in reality, Slowpoke needs Shelter to evolve, and needs Shelter to bite Slowpoke's tail to evolve into Slowbro. Gary was thinking, if a Shelter with higher potential bites Slowpoke's tail and evolves into Slowbro, will the potential be based on Slowbro, or will the potential be based on Slowbro? What about Shelter? And if both have the same potential, can their potential rise by 1 level after evolving together? 0. Please give me flower 0. Where are we going next? Sabrina asked. She didn't ask Gary about challenging the gym. She knew that Gary was very strong, and it was not easy for him to get a badge. Go to Viridian City, and then go back to Pallet Town. I'll take you to my house, Gary said. DL, Sabrina nodded obediently. Although she didn't care much about these, she was a little shy to meet Gary's family, but she looked calm on the surface. By the way, Sabrina, do you want to try to evolve Slowpoke into Slowbro? Gary said, Slowpoke is pretty good like this. I don't plan to evolve it for the time being. Sabrina still likes Slowpoke's current appearance. If you like it, it's up to you. Just pack up and we'll set off for Viridian City tomorrow. Gary said, yeah. The next morning, the two of them rode their mountain bikes to Viridian City. The small road they took only a week to reach Viridian City. Gary currently carries the growth status of Pokémon. Magnemite LV 30-32. Electabuzz LV 34-36. Crobat LV 41 42, Alakazam LV 42-44, Zapdos LV 60, Vivian City Pokemon Center. Ah, isn't this Mr. Gary? When he arrived at the Pokemon Center, Gary was recognized by Joy here because Gary arrested Team Rocket at the beginning, otherwise there would be a great loss here. Yeah, long time no see. Nurse Joy is doing well recently. Gary said, don't mention it. Mr. Itaki of Tokiwa Gym has lowered the challenge requirements for some reason recently, causing many trainers to challenge. Every time the trainers who challenged had their Pokemon all defeated, I was busy, Nurse Joy said with a headache. Gary was surprised. It seemed that Itaki had already started to test Mutewo's combat power and lowered the challenge conditions just to let Mutewo fight to his heart's content. However, Itaki also had a problem with his brain. What was Mutewo's strength? Although its current strength had not reached its peak, only trainers at the level of Elite Four were qualified to be Mutewo's rival. Chapter 126. Tokiwa Gym. Why did the leader of the Tokiwa Gym suddenly lower the challenge standard? Gary asked, knowing
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.